It is said that everything is an appearance. And then it is stated via the appearance of human corporeal manifestations that are apparently appearing to mingle within the appearance of everything. And in that mingling, there are energetic movements of expression. Those energetic movements of expression that are mingling within the appearance of everything apparently appear as everything, as though out of nowhere, and as though from nothing, from no thing. Therefore, it is recognized that all is non-separation. Non-separation is everything. Everything is an appearance as though anything can appear within the appearance of everything. And within those appearances of anything, it is recognized as though there is something within the appearances of anything that are also part of the content of everything that appears, as both real and unreal, observable and unobservable, knowable and unknowable, for nobody, for no appearance of nobody. All the appearances of bodies, human corporeal manifestations that are identified as such, are simply appearances of human corporeal local units of quality of consciousness energy forms that can appear and will appear out of nowhere, just as appearances. And those appearances cannot be counted. Infinitudinal complexification. So apparently, it is everything, whole, complete, perfect, nothing required to be added and nothing required to be taken away from everything that appears now. Apparently, it is also temporal and temporary. And in that temporal temporariness, in space and time, it is recognized that the appearances that are appearing in space and time, and yet that which appears in space and time is not of space and time. Therefore, it is recognized that although everything is non-separation, it is also recognized that it is both real and unreal, not exclusively real and not exclusively unreal. Everything is both observable and unobservable, not exclusively observable and not exclusively unobservable, but both. Also, everything is knowable and unknowable, not exclusively knowable and not exclusively unknowable, for nobody and not to anybody. There is what apparently appears to be life, and that life is not for and to anybody. These appearances can conjure and entertain ideas that they are separate, and in that idea of separation that is conjured is thought to be so via a mental thought system, referred to as consciousness. The enunciation, to speak in a language, to hear the sound of language, to hear the audio, to hear the sounds, is part of everything. Sounds, energetic movements as sounds, frequencies, resonances, that which identifies and states that there are appearances of everything, are simply mingling with everything as though content, as though there is content. It only apparently appears to be so, but it is also not so. It is and it isn't. It is and it is not. It is so and it is not so. Paradoxically, there's no reason, meaning, and purpose for everything to appear to be so and not so. And yet, it is recognized that everything is temporally temporary. If that is so, but not exclusively so, then it is recognized that that is temporally temporary partial liberation. It has been recognized as though there is absolute liberation. That is not the case, apparently. Apparently, there's still the recognition that everything is appearing in space and time. And in that appearance that is mingling includes human, corporeal, local units of quality of consciousness energy forms that are temporally temporary as representations of the impermanence in space and time and not of space and time. And yet, these appearances of human corporeal units of local quality consciousness energies are appearing for an indeterminate duration in space and time, which causes a recognition as though that is partial liberation. Nothing needs to be sought. Nothing can be known. Nothing can be known regarding that which is unknowable. And yet, it apparently appears as though that which is knowable also includes that which is unknowable. And sometimes, and when referring to sometimes, in space and time, it can be recognized that that which was once allegedly or supposed or thought to be unknowable somehow is recognized as knowable. Nobody knows how. Nobody knows how that is and why that is and isn't. It is recognized that it is and it isn't. Therefore, the knowledge is not accessible as to that which is unknowable. And if that's not accessible, then it cannot be known. That which is accessible is temporally temporary. It apparently is that way, but not exclusively that way, simply because these appearances of human corporeal manifestations of local units of quality consciousness that are impermanently, temporarily appearing, observable in mirrors for an impermanently indeterminate duration in space and time, are expressing these observations as though it apparently appears that everything contains something or contains things that are separate when they are not. That's only in their appearance. So the appearance of that which is labeled as though there are things within anything that appears as everything creates, or apparently appears to create, this idea of entertaining thoughts that there are separate things as content within anything that can appear as something, and anything also being the content, or apparently appearing to be content, of that which is already everything, whole, complete, perfect, just as it is. There's nobody recognizing that, and yet it is as though there's some type of energetic movement that apparently appears to animate these human corporeal manifestations. And so, there is what has been described in various languages, no thing, or a void. A void as no thing, nothing, from nowhere. It's not a fixed position. It's outside of space and time. It's infinitude, infinitudinally complexified as no thing, nowhere. And yet, there apparently appears to be the appearance of everything. How and why that apparently appears to be so and not so, it is and it isn't, is unknowable. It cannot even be stated that that is a problem. There are no problems for everything to appear as it does, as everything. It has been described in various languages. The Upanishads, Advaita Vedanta, and now the English word rendered and spoken and expressed via units of local quality consciousness energy forms. They are temporarily so. Temporally as in time, in space and time, but not of space and time. But simultaneously that way, apparently appearing paradoxically so. And not so. It is and it isn't. Everything is an appearance, as it appears, and as it does not appear, because it is both. It is both real and unreal. It is observable and unobservable. It is knowable and unknowable. It is only knowable in a sense of entertaining thoughts. What is entertaining thoughts? Local units of human corporeal manifestations that are expressing, that are enunciating words, and words are forming, and the formation of words are based on the consciousness. To cognize, a recognition, recognition. It is taking consciousness and manifesting an appearance as though there are separate human corporeal units of local quality consciousness energy forms that are appearing in space and time, apparently. And yet, those energetic movements are not of space and time. It is paradoxically so. And yet, nobody knows why or how. it has been said the reason, but it could be, although there are no coulds, shoulds, or woulds necessary, and there are no whys and hows, to know how and why everything's appearing from nowhere as nothing, but is still apparently appearing as appearances of everything. That's the paradox, but that's not a problem. It is not a problem to solve, that everything appears this way. That everything appears this way or that way, but it only appears this way and that way to what? To that which believes. It is when that is cognized, when the thought and idea is entertained, that there are separate human corporeal manifestations that are expressing via the mental thought system, consciousness, and entertaining thoughts that there are dualities within everything that appears as non-separation. And just because it is stated in some language where there apparently appears to be a unit of local quality of consciousness energy expressing and speaking a language in an attempt to explain and describe and point to everything, it cannot be done. There's nobody pointing, because it is already mingling with everything. In other words, within everything that appears as though it's content, there is the risk of believing that there are separate units of local quality conscious energy forms that are apparently appearing that way, but they only appear that way. And they're only temporarily so. And they are also not so. There are the appearances of a manifestation that's mingling with everything. Therefore, everything is operating of its own accord and volition. These appearances as though there are separate units of local quality conscious energy forms that are appearing as though they are physically solid is conjured. It is conjured via the mental thought system. It is thought about. And in that consciousness, the mental thought system takes these energetic movements of local quality of consciousness energy forms that are appearing as though humanly corporeal, and they are identified as humanly corporeal, but that does not make them so. It is only suggested. It can only be suggested. Why? Because it's unknowable. How there can be an energetic movement that apparently appears to be a human corporeal manifestation and apparently appears as though it is separate when it is not. It only appears separate, but it is not separate. It is non-separation. This is why there are so many conundrums and so many appearances of different human corporeal manifestations, because of the infinitudinal complexification, which apparently appears to be the content of everything. But that does not require labeling and descriptions, definitions to define, as though everything needs to be taken apart, dismantled, separated, and then given labels and categories and names. That's not necessary. It is not necessary. And this is what has apparently appeared to have manifested. Manifestation is not an occurrence. It is a mistake. It is a mistake from what? From a self-conjured self that believes they believe, and in belief stems from the mental thought system, which is consciousness. Therefore, if thoughts and ideas, if anything is thought about, it is that creates that sense of separation. As though there are separate people in a reality that's called a reality. So it is likened to a dream. It is likened to a dream that is unpredictable. And it is unpredictable because there is no free will and choice involved with that which appears as though it is humanly corporeal, and as though it is witnessing and observing everything that appears as it does. And it takes consciousness. It is taking consciousness and as though tapping into the consciousness and entertaining as though separate thoughts. It apparently appears to be separate thoughts because of this conjuring idea that there is a mind, and it's a separate mind, and then it becomes my mind, my life. There is just life, and life is another term that is used in various languages, and of course we are referring, when I say we, that which appears to be speaking the English language as a human corporeal unit of local quasi-conscious energy is only temporarily so, as an appearance. Therefore, it is heard, expressions, language, formulating thoughts. It is a translation. It is a transliteration from the thought that is not uttered using sound, a thought that is transliterated from a soundless thought becomes expressed. And it's not a becoming that has always been that way. It is simply an energetic movement that's conjured. And in the conjurings, there are these human corporeal forms that are called that. Because there was and has been the entertainment of thoughts via the mental thought system as consciousness, and it was conjured as though there is separation. It's only apparently appearing that way, of course, and yet speaking of this is not even necessary. Speaking this way has no helpful need for anybody else. So to conjure the idea of a self-conjured self that believes they can teach that which is already everything as it is not so. It cannot be done because everything is already done. Everything's complete, whole, and perfect as it is. Therefore, once that is recognized, then there never was a need to speak about it. And yet, it apparently appears as though there have been what I refer to as gurus, spiritual teachers. And that apparently appears to be relegated to that which is separate. Or there's an appearance of one separate teacher in a fixed position somewhere. But all of this is just simply, all of this, when we say this, it's not just this. See, it's not exclusively this. It is both this and that simultaneously. But yet it's not two of this and that. In other words, there's not this appearance of a unit of local quasi-conscious energy form, and then there's not that. It is both this and that. It is not duality, it is non-duality, it's non-separation. It only apparently appears to be separation. This has caused so much confusion. That is because the self-conjured conjured self thought that way. And how did it think in terms of being separate? There it is. That's how. Now, there is the conjured, entertained idea via the apparent appearance of a human corporeal unit of local quality consciousness energy form that apparently appears as though it has a mind of its own that's tapping into the consciousness, and then the mental thought system of that consciousness causes this conjuring as though there is some body separate within the appearance of everything that is mingling with everything. It does not realize that separate sense of self, that self-conjured conjured self, as though it is independent and it is separate from everybody and everything else. And then it is witnessing that. But that which is witnessing is not the witnesser. That which is observing is not the observer. Because once it is realized, once it is recognized, once it's acknowledged that there is just simply being, then it is recognized that the being was a mistake. Being was mistaken to be involved with knowing. In other words, there was a self-conjured conjured self that was simply being, always was being, always will be, and then entertained the idea that it was being separate. It's a manifestation separately, but it is mingling. It only apparently appears to be that way, as though it's separate, but it's not. Therefore, once it is recognized that whatever can be perceived or conjured or thought about is not a separate conjuring, and it is not a separate perceiver, that is recognizing that. That recognition is apparently appearing to be as though borrowed or accessed or tapped into and then relayed. It is as though it apparently appears that a local unit of quality consciousness energy form as a body-mind complex action figure, and simply called that, and using the English language, for no reason, for no meaning, reason, and purpose, other than of everything's own accord volition, ad infinitum. Therefore, if this is expressed, and there are recognitions that apparently appear to be stated and expressed, that is still simply temporally so, temporarily so, in space and time. And therefore that means that the meaning that's thought to be a meaning of expression, as though that matters, as though there's meaning, reason, and purpose for a local unit of quality conscious energy form to appear, runs the risk of doing what? Of believing that there must be doing involved, and that in that doing, knowing must be conjured. So, this is how it apparently appears to be, as though there's some type of a process that's going on. But those processes are apparently appearing to happen as though they're happenings in space and time, as though they're separate happenings, as life apparently appears to be just simply life. And life is the beingness of being. And so being has been mistaken all along, in space and time that way. So, once it is recognized, the collapse of that recognizer, observer, perceiver, that which is part of what we're not. We are not that perceiver, we're not that observer, we're not that witnesser. It only apparently appears to be that way, and it's temporarily impermanent. It's impermanent because it's apparently appearing to be in space and time. And yet, that's not even a cause. It's the English language that causes this conjuring of entertaining thoughts and ideas as though there's a separate person, a personal presence there that is claiming to recognize that there's a separate claimer proclaiming separation in that manner, in that way, to say, well, I recognize. And then here comes the I. The I, the me, the mine, the claiming. That's what becomes conjured. It apparently appears as though it is an occurrence, a separate happening for and to a separate self. Or the appearance is mistaken. The appearance is mistaken as though that's a separate appearance, but it's not. It only apparently appears. Now, that appearance is mingling. And so as it expresses, it's expressing in space and time, temporarily so. And there's also the recognition that that self-conjured self was simply a story, and that story was expressed during a time when it thought it was a separate self. And in that separate sense of a self, it conjured all these ideas of separation, of duality. And all the dualities of infinitudinal complexification cannot be counted. It is similarly so, as it apparently appears to be, within that infinitudinal complexification, the countenance is infinite. It's not finite. It's infinite. And yet, a local unit of quasi-conscious energy form cannot know that because it is not part of knowing and it's not part of doing. Taking action as though there's a separate person as personal presence. Because that's not exclusively so. It is and it isn't. What part of what is and isn't is that? That's the impersonal presence. So there are these energetic movements, there are oscillations that appearing and then disappearing. Observable and unobservable. Knowable and unknowable. Simultaneously, all of those descriptions are all simultaneously mingling. That's chaotic. And yet that's also radical freedom. Unpredictable. Because everything's appearing as it does. And yet it can appear as order, or it can appear as chaos, but it can appear both, as both ways. But how? How can that which appears as everything does, and yet there are these ideas and thoughts that, oh, well, I'm entertaining an idea that everything is appearing out of nowhere, from nothing. But there is no I. There's only this thought, an idea that I'm a separate person. And then there's a recognition that I'm not a separate person. And yet, it can be said that we, as though we are all part of everything. So there have been these type of explanations in various languages, which of course is the core of the non-duality, the non-dual nature about non-duality. And non-duality is the word itself, the term itself, is taken from that which is always non-dual, just as nature operates of its own accord and volition. And it can appear as various types of environments, and then when these terms and words are uttered and spoken, once it is recognized that there are no separate local units of quality consciousness energy forms, as though they're separate from every other human corporeal manifestation, but they're appearing simultaneously as we, as us. And we say we as us because there's still this degree of identity, but it's temporarily so. Nothing needs to be done about that. There's no doing. There are no doers. It only apparently appears to be that way. But once that is recognized, and then there is no longer a sense of a separate self, it is entertaining the ideas as though it is separate from everything and everybody else. When we say everybody else that apparently appears as though there are separate personal presences appearing. And yet, it is recognized because it apparently appears to be partially liberated. How is it partially liberated? Well, it is both. It is partially liberated, and it is absolutely liberated. So there's partial liberation and whole liberation. But it is both. Just as everything is real and unreal, not exclusively real and not exclusively unreal. The same can be said and can be stated regarding personal presence, temporally appearing, and impersonal presence. Impersonal presence is the essence of everything. The essence of everything is from nowhere. It's from nothing. And nobody can ever know that. Simply because there are no separate beings. It only apparently appears to be as though there are separate beings that know that and can do something about it. And what will they do? Well, they will conjure what? They'll conjure a teaching. They'll conjure a process of doing and knowing. Taking different ideas and turning them into something that can be taught and learned. That's duality. Teaching, learning. From what? Well, from everything. Everything's already whole, complete, perfect as it is. It doesn't need to be taught. Everything doesn't need to be taught to somebody else, because there isn't anybody else. It is oneness, it is unity, it is everything already. And that is not separation. That's non-separation. It's non-dual in nature. Non-duality is a term that's relegated to a study as though it can be taught as a teaching. It's not. It's not that way. It was conjured. Therefore, all beliefs, all religions, all teachings, that which is referred to as a teaching, that which is referred to as something that can be known, and then take the knowing and then give it a label, give it a title, an entitlement, and call it something. And see, that creates this sense of separation, that sense of a separate self. And then what apparently appears to have happened is that the conjuring of separate senses of selves began to group and branch off, to apparently appear as though they were part of separate groups of self-conjured conjure selves that were convinced to believe in a separate belief of beingness, but as though that needed to be known and that something needed to be done about that. About what? About everything. Why? Because it was a mistake, misinterpretation, a mistake of that which was already being one with everything. In other words, that's the non-dual nature, non-separation, one with absolutely everything. This is how it apparently appears to be that groups of appearances of local units of quality of consciousness energy forms simply called human beings were already being, but they were labeled. They were eventually named and labeled. And then the separation began. It is likened to the creation story. There's a story of Earth, and it's all conjured, of course. Everything that can be discussed, and everything that is discussed, can be discussed in one of many languages. There apparently appear to be languages in different forms of expression and tongues. And what is expressing? What is that that's expressing? It is energy. It is mistaken to be separate energy forms, though. But they only apparently appear to be that way. Why? Well, there's the stream. There's a stream of time and a stream of consciousness. It is likened to a river or channels or tributaries, or as these rivers are flowing, they flow into what? An ocean eventually. And oceans, using of course a metaphor here loosely, referring to an ocean of so much plentiful life forms within it, that the countenance is so great that it cannot be measured. Therefore, the apparent appearance as though there are separate identifiable things within the ocean of space and time are mistakenly labeled. And this is what has caused a separation. The story of Earth with the creation story of a single cell splitting into two separate, there it is, separation. The belief in that is the creation story. The belief as though everything is apparently appearing to be that. These descriptions. Why? Because these descriptions were thought to be something. That thought, that idea of describing and naming as though there are separate things that are being observed. See, there's the word right there, being observed. No. Is observation required to be? No. See, there it is. If you catch it, if it is caught, and what is catching that? Nothing's catching it. And how can nothing catch something? So you see, there's the paradox right there. There's a local unit of quality conscious energy form. It is expressing. Now, it is expressing with everything that already is. So see, that's a mingling. That's it. Just be. And leave it there. It does not even need to be left anywhere, because it's part of everywhere. Everywhereness. There are no fixed positions where these energetic movements do appear and manifest temporarily so, though. It only apparently appears to be as though there are moments in time, and then that there are years. Years is just an expression of more time, as though it's a longer period of time. But that's only apparently so. That's not exclusively real. So you see, that which is appearing as everything is only simply an appearance in space and time. Now, in space and time, when that is said, that is stated via that which is appearing and mingling with everything. But at the same time, see, same time, it's the timing. And time is timing what? Time is timing the appearance of everything this way. But it's not absolute. It is only appearing as though it is partially witnessed to be that way. And what is witnessing? It's not a witnesser. It is that which is being and mingling. And in that beingness, it's mingling with everything. It is. It is and it isn't. It is temporally manifestation, yeah, and it isn't. From nothing, out of nowhere. Manifests as something as though it's a unit of local quiet consciousness, as though that's a separate body that's manifesting, but that body is just an appearance, temporarily observably visible in space and time, but not of space and time, see? Simultaneously. See, that these paradoxes right there, that's the one, and that's why it cannot be known. Because there aren't any separate body minds. There aren't any separate minds that could claim that they know that. How that works. How is it paradoxically so? Nobody knows. It can only be pointed to. Everything's pointing to not separate things and then calling those separate things something separate and giving it a name or categorizing that. No. Everything is just free. It's absolutely free, absolute liberation, because it is already everything appearing as everything. And within everything, anything can appear. And then, within anything, this is what happens. What happens? There is this conjuring. This idea, this entertaining of a thought. And how does that thought become conjured? It apparently appears to be conjured because of this apparent appearance of temporariness. It appears as though we're being temporary, but we're not being temporary. We think we're temporary. See, it's the knowing, and then we think we have to teach that knowing so that everybody else is on the same page, so to speak, and also knows that. No. It just appears that way. It's just a mistake. That's all. So there's nothing to do about that. And there's nothing to know about that. There's no study, no teachings that have to happen. So this is what happens, apparently. You got to use that word apparently or seemingly. Seemingly so, and apparently so. It is simply expressed this way, that it's seemingly so, simply because of the apparent appearance of time, moments in time. And then there's this appearance of a threefold principle, as though there was a past that we existed upon, and that we're existing now, and that we're also going to exist in the future. No. It's always a presence. It's always an infinitudinal, complexified presence as everything, mingling with everything, of its own accord and volition. Therefore, if everything is appearing of its own accord and volition from nothing, out of nowhere, no fixed position, then begins to manifest as everything, as though there are fixed positions where everything is positioned upon, but it's not. It only apparently appears to be that way. There's the paradox. That's the paradox. Time and space. In time and space, but not of time and space. See? Real and unreal. Observable and unobservable. Knowable and unknowable. But nothing needs to be known about that. See? That's why teachings are unnecessary. Teachings are unnecessary to be. There it is. See? To be does not require teachings. And it does not require a knowing to be. See there? No effort. No effort required whatsoever, just to simply mingle. Going with the flow. That expression in the English language is familiar. That familiarity is not a separate familiarity. As a language is being expressed, it is expressed not for somebody, but as everybody. Now, I know that sounds kind of pedantic. It sounds quite cryptic when it's stated this way, because it is both. It is and it isn't. That's not separation, that's oneness. And so, once that is recognized, that there never was a separate person anywhere, and that this expression is simply an expression of recognizing. And where does that recognition stem from? It doesn't originate from anywhere in some fixed position. It is mingling as everything. It's with everything. And so then it can be stated that it is the beingness mingling with everything. And yet, it just apparently appears as though there are these separate human corporeal manifestations expressing, but just simply expressing in such a way to acknowledge. And when we say acknowledge, it is simply being stated from the beingness. It's being stated. It's being and then stated. Being expressed. Yeah? Being expressed. Being expressed. And that's just an oscillation of energy. It's a cycling, as you can call it that. We can call it that. And so there's an attempt there. There's an attempt to describe what is already everything. Everything's already perfect, whole, complete, just as it is. And then once that's recognized, and recognized by what? It is recognized in simply being. It is in the beingness. And that takes no effort, takes no knowledge base to gather information and then go around different places to teach that as though it's a knowing, as though it's a belief. It's not. Just simply be. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's it right there. Because to be is mingling with everything that is appearing as it does. Whole, perfect, complete. And that does not require teaching for that to be so and not so. That's it. It's just the being, the beingness. No knowledge base, no doing, no activities. There, of course, there's the apparent appearance of these courses of activities apparently appearing to happen, but they're not happening for anybody. They're not happening to anybody that's separate. Only apparently appears to be that way, so there's the mistake. So, are there any solutions to all that? It's its own solution. How? In the being. Beingness is not how, and beingness is not why. Beingness is simply presence, but not personal presence. It's both personal and impersonal presence. It's both. It is both. Just as everything is, and it isn't. See, there it is. The being. We are and we are not. Both. That's the non-dual nature of everything. Volume 2. And what we have been, when I say we, those human corporeal manifestations, as we all are, okay, we are all that. We're with everything. We're mingling with everything, and we are that. Yeah? And there's the oneness. And it doesn't need to be taken any further than that. That doesn't need to be turned into a teaching, and then there's the spiritual groups, and then there's these clubs that say, okay, we are and we are not club. We are and we are not club. No, there's no club necessary, because that, what does that do? Then it simply conjures up an idea that, oh, well, we need to be a separate club, and then we need to get everybody else to join that. They're already joined. Everybody's already in on this, whether it is recognized or not. Yeah? Yes. Every single human corporeal manifestation is already in on this. What are they in on? Being. Yeah? Recognize it or not, like it or not, and yet it is recognized that we are and we are not, and we're mingling with everything as it appears of its own accord and volition ad infinitum. It has been this way, it is this way now, and it will always be this way. Now, it is stated that way, and this way and that way. Why? The apparent appearance of time, of space and time, as though that is a separate apparent appearance of everything appearing, but it's not. Everything is whole, complete, and perfect. It's not a separate appearance in space and time. It is both. It is appearing in space and time as everything, and it is also unobservable and unknowable, that which is not appearing in space and time. So that's how it is, everything, in space and time, and it isn't unobservable, outside of space and time, beyond time, timelessness, infinitudinal complexification, infiniteness. A mind cannot grasp it because it's ungraspable. It's that which is unknowable. It doesn't need to be known. For everything to appear as it does, it doesn't need to be known. It doesn't need to be taught. It doesn't need to be turned into and conjured into a teaching, and then going around the world and teaching this, that, and the other. No, that's not the way it really truly is and isn't. It is and isn't. But you see, so many self-conjured selves are sticking to this idea, and they're holding on to it, and they believe they need to teach that there's beginnings, births, and endings, deaths, of individual human corporeal manifestations, as though they're separate people in the dream reality. In a reality that they are separate. They only apparently appear that way. And that's just being. That's beingness. It's a representation of beingness. Just as the infinitudinal complexification, as though there's something in anything that could appear, and in anything that could appear, it is already everything. You see? But that cannot be understood by somebody that has conjured the idea that they are separate from everybody and everything else. Okay? And speaking in terms of that, that is the core. That's the core essence of non-dualism. Okay? It's not a teaching. No. It's just simply a recognition of beingness. Yeah, it's just beingness. And it is universal. Beingness is universal. It's that way throughout the universe. It is that way. It's not this and that way. It is that way. And that way is whole, perfect, complete. Just as everything always has been and always will be. See? Always will be. See, that's the beingness. That's the unity. That's the oneness. There's no separation in that. No, there's no separation in being. There's a whole lot of separation in knowing, and a whole lot of separation in doing. And then if it's believed that knowing and doing is required just to be, then there it goes again. The self-conscious conscious self entertaining an idea that it's separate. It's not that way. It's not like that. Never has been. It doesn't have to be known to be. See? Knowing for so long has been mistaken as though that's being. It's not. You don't have to know that you're being. No. You're just simply being. And then, see, to be doesn't need to be known. And there's nothing to do about that. And yet, just to simply be mingling with everything that appears as it does, of its own accord volition, and then you're going along with its own accord volition. See, there's no longer a separate person saying, wait a minute, I have my life. I want to do it my way. I have free will and choice to make choices for my life. And see, that's why that is not so. That's why that's not happening. That's not happening to anybody. Life is not happening to anybody or for anybody. Because there's no separation. See? That's simple. I mean, it's so simple. It's been hidden in the ordinary. Now, this message of recognizing that we are and we are not, everything is and it isn't, this recognition apparently appears to be as though it's an event that's happening all around the world. It's as though it's this great occurrence. And it is as though this is that prophecy that's mentioned. And in the belief system of, they refer to, in these New Testament writings in Christianity, they refer to a second coming, and that everything will be made anew, a new age will dawn, and then false teachers will be recognized as false teachers. See, those false teachers, in a sense, they really are those groups of self-conscious conscious selves that believed that they were the bringers, the harbingers of all this truth, that they figured it all out, that they figured out life and how it appears, why it appears, that it has meaning, reason, and purpose. This is how all those different spiritual traditions and teachings and belief systems apparently appeared, as though they were separate beliefs and teachings, and then as though it is spread out. No, it's not. It is not separate. It's not spread out anywhere. It's part of everywhereness. It's everything. It's already that. It's not in a fixed position. It's not. There's no separation in this spiritual tradition that should be followed, or that spiritual teaching, this teaching, that teaching. Oh, what's required for that teaching so that what would happen? Oh, enlightenment, awakening. No. Being has always been awakened. It's always been enlightened. And it always will be that. But see, that's mistaken as though, oh, wait a minute, I'm not enlightened, I'm not awakened enough. I think I need to go learn something about that. I need to go seek. So I am going on a spiritual quest. And there's the conjuring, there's the self-conjuring all over again. And that's what apparently appeared to have happened. And it never really happened. So it's just speaking of non-happenings, really. Yes, there are just bodies. There's just appearance of bodies. And then there's sounds. And there's colors. And there's aliveness. There is just an infinitesimal complexification of aliveness, because that's everything. Absolutely everything. And this is Non-Duality Speaker Reviews, Volume 2, and I believe from Ireland. We have the birth name and birthright of Kenneth Madden. So I'll check that out for now. Okay, capturing that in this particular YouTube recording.
Well, it's very, you come into an area, however you get into it, or stumble on it or whatever, and it's called non-duality, right? More common, getting popular, I suppose, to some degree.
Popular in a kind of
popular in a niche way.
Unbelievably niche way.
Actually, to be honest, it's gotten much more popular in the sense that lots of other it's kind of a buzzword now, like awareness and mindfulness and non-duality is thrown in there and integrated into all sorts of spiritual stuff as well, you know. But if you want to break it down, I mean, non-duality is essentially there's no such thing as non-duality. So it's absolutely a complete paradox, right? And most of the headings or most of the messages that come under that heading of non-duality are really simply teachings that they may call themselves not non-teachers or not teachers, and they're sharing something, but they're speaking to somebody and they're telling them how they can get somewhere or realize something, usually that they're not there.
Yeah.
So they're saying there is no separate person, there's no separate individual, and then they speak to a separate individual who can then do something to realize there's no separate individual.
Yeah.
Be that meditation, self-inquiry, mindfulness, it's just a hodgepodge of different things, you know.
Yeah.
And it goes from very prescriptive like that, from, you know, if you meditate and you sit there and who is it that's thinking and all of this kind of stuff, which is quite obviously giving you something to do and that will lead somewhere, to other ones that are much more subtle, that kind of just more subtly offer something that they might say there's no you there to do or not do anything, but yet there's something on offer there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So it's very confusing, the area, when you come in, because you hear all these people, mainly through the internet, I suppose, and then you're reading books and whatever.
See, right there is no doing. You know, it's only apparent appearance of somebody doing something, and that they need to learn how to do that, how to do something. How to do what? Well, activities. So it is a mistake, a misinterpretation of beingness. See, there's just beingness. Just be. Just simply be. That's it. There's no requirement of how to be, or knowing about how to be, or why you're being. No. There is no meaning, reason, purpose for being. Why? Because of its own accord of volition, everything appears. It's already whole, complete, perfect, just as it is. It's just another way to say that. Using the English language, of course.
So if you want, the clearest way I can say is that there's two communications under that heading. One is a clear one and the other isn't, which is the one I was just talking about. It's speaking to someone, it's offering something, it's spirituality, or it's philosophy, or it's psychotherapy, or it's a mixture of all three, and it's very it's just something for the person to do, really, the individual to do. The people who may be sincere who are talking about it, but they're definitely speaking to someone, so there must be someone there who's speaking to someone else, so this whole thing goes on, you know.
And what that is are proclamations of self-conscious conscious selves that believe they are separate people or separate beings, yeah, that they're actually separate beings. No. Beingness is not separation, expressing separately. We are and we are not. It is in the collective. It's a collective appearance of human corporeal manifestations that are being. Right there, that's it. That does not require teaching. Doesn't require to say that, oh, well, now we need a non-duality teacher to explain the collapse of the me because it was conjured and never really happened. The story is not even worth mentioning. It's not. It's not worth mentioning. So we won't mention it. We won't mention it. There's no I, there's no my, there's no mind, no claiming. No. All of that self-conjured conjuring, unnecessary. No, because that's not happening. It's not what we are. We are mingling with everything. We are and we are not. Everything is and it isn't. That's the bottom line. It's in the beingness. It's not in the knowing, it's not in the doing. It's definitely in the being. Absolutely.
Then the clear message is less common, much less common, but is absolutely boundless and agendaless, and is not. They're not at all the same communication or the same message, which is so confusing when there's someone there who's listening who's confused because they sound like the same message because the words can be very similar, and then what happens is someone say is following this person and then there could be a clear communication in there, and then they're following these other people who are obviously just speaking to someone and they can't differentiate at all, and that's just the way the mind works. It integrates what's been heard to fit your worldview and your
Yeah, these worldviews are obviously conjured, and those are separate worldviews. But you see, that's the that's the conjuring, though. The belief and to think and entertain the idea that we are separate somebodies, yeah, and that we exist in a fixed position somewhere. No, we are and we are not. We're mingling with every awareness. All the time. Time is timing the appearance as though there are appearances separate people in a dream reality, but no. It's all just a dream. It's all conjured, self-conjurings. Self-conjured, conjured self, conjuring the idea of separation. That's all that is. And once it is recognized that that is so, then we are and we are not, and we're back to beingness. And we've always, it's not a return to it. Apparently it appears to be that, but it's not. That doesn't have to be taught. Nobody has to spend 7 years in Tibet chanting, I am not a body, I am not a body, not a body. And it's not necessary to say, oh, the divine in me recognizes divine in you, the Om Mani Padme Hum thing. All that's not even necessary. To simply be. That's it. No teaching needs to be taught to be. Of course not. It was only presumed. It was presupposed. Yeah, that idea. Well, it never really happened. So all these conjures, all these teachings were just not really wastes of energy, but apparently appears to be the case. So it apparently appears as though lives were wasted. Lives were wasted. Separate lives? No, there's no waste. There's no waste of life. Of course not. Because it's already being everything. We are not. It's a oneness. Yes. It is non-separation. And non-duality does not have to be a teaching, does not have to be taught just because somebody says so. No, of course not.
framework of the world or your paradigm or your, do you know what I mean? So that's how we all function. We hear what we want to hear in another way, you know what I mean? But when the clear...
We all function? No, it only apparently appears to be the case that function's happening. No, see, there is that separation. It was presumed to be so, to be that way, where, oh, there's one body that's experiencing life in its own unique way, and then it has a story to tell about that, because it's living its own life. No, we are and we are not. We are life, mingling. We are mingling with life. Energetic movements. There's unity in that. There's unification. There's oneness in that. And that doesn't have to be taught. It's already being that. That doesn't need to be taught. But once it is recognized, and that's all that apparently appears to be happening, that there's this global recognition going on, and then everybody wants to call that something. They want to call it the second coming of Jesus Christ. They want to call it prophecy being fulfilled. They want to call it a belief of some type, so that there could be groups of apparent appearances of people that have been following a spiritual tradition to say, oh, see, I was right all along. We were right all along. The Christians were right. Or no, the Islamic tradition, Muhammad, see, he said that. He's returning, and he's going to say that and proclaim that for everybody to hear. No, see, misinterpretations, separate beliefs, all dreams, all conjurings. It's all conjured. It's not necessary. Just simply be. We are and we are not. Just simply be. That's it. No teaching required for that. Just simply be. Of course not.
Here one is heard, and it's very obvious how different it is. Then it becomes very obvious. Absolutely not speaking to anyone, and there's an energy to it that is just remarkable. It's nobody's energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Everybody's.
Indescribable. It's
Say
phenomenal.
it, Keith. Say it. It's everybody's. It's everybody's. Say it's nobody's. Yeah, true. No single person. No separate somebody somewhere. It's every-awareness. Beingness is every-awareness. We are and we are not. We're mingling with everything. It's already whole, perfect, and complete. There's no separation in that. We are and we are not. Being. Every single body that apparently appears in space and time, temporarily so, for an impermanently indeterminate duration in space and time, and not of space and time. That's all an apparent appearance. That's it. And that's all part of what? Beingness. Just being. That's it. Doesn't need to be taught to be. No. Doesn't need to be taught. It's not a teaching. Just simply be. So let it be. Because it's going to be that anyway. It's going to be everything. It's going to appear as everything does. Perfect, whole, complete. It is being that. And we are and we are not being with that which is and it isn't. As empty fullness, as everything.
It's not personal. It's not a personal energy. Which, when the person who's seeking comes in,
Is both. Is both personal and impersonal. We are and we are not. Everything is and it isn't. It's both. Paradoxically so. Beautiful. Sure it is, but not exclusively beautiful. It's not beautiful for anybody. Exclusively just for one group of somebodies. Because they possess the spiritual teachings that nobody else possesses. They have all the answers. No, it's not about answers and questions and solutions and, to figure out. Teaching, we need to spend some more time at that spiritual retreat because we have a guru that, he's teaching something that hasn't been heard before. It's a certain, you really need to be there. You need to be there? Nah. Everybody's already being everywhere. See? There it is. It is so obvious. And it is so immediate to be. There it is. And that's it. That is that. Right there. That's the bottom line. That is that. We are and we are not. Everything is and it isn't. That's the one. That's the unification. That's the infinitudinal complexification of all that is and all that is not. Empty fullness. Apparently appearing as what is and what is not empty fullness. For nobody. It apparently appears to be as though real and unreal, observable and unobservable, knowable and unknowable. For nobody, for no meaning, reason, and purpose, other than of its own accord and volition, which is simply everything being, its beingness. That's it. Timeless. Doesn't require time to be.
And looks can often find then that clear communication extremely confronting. Extremely confronting. And wants to run away from it. Or else either run away from it or integrate it somehow. Again, that's back to they're saying the same as this other person. So just diffuse it almost. So they could sit through a meeting for 2 or 3 days and not hear a word really that's been said.
Yeah.
You know. So now it seems the clear communication.
Yeah, because it's not going to make sense at all. These type of communications, these transmissions, these utterances, these temporary sounds of language and communication, and if there's a group of somebodies in this dream reality, okay, that apparently appears to be a dream reality, when it's simply everything appearing as though it's a dream reality. Everything, absolutely everything is appearing as though it's a dream reality. That's because it is simply being with that. The beingness, as though it's a dream reality, is just everything appearing as a dream reality. We are and we are not. Everything is and it isn't. Empty fullness, spacious aliveness. There's just the utterance of these words are not necessary, but yet, why are they being described? They are. There's no why, there's no how. It is simply expressed. And is it expressed for anybody? No. It is simply beingness. That is that, the beingness. And once it's recognized that that's all there is, then nothing needs to be said anymore. No, that's it. And then, that which has always been that way is never heard from again. That which was once conjuring an idea that they were a separate person in a world, in a society, and that they mattered. They mattered a little bit more or a little bit less than the next person. No. That was all conjured. That separation was conjured, all that duality. So, here we are. Where? Not here, everywhere. Everywhereness, beingness. We are and we are not. Everything is and it isn't. That's it. Being. Done. But it's not the end. Because there was no beginning. Alpha and Omega. That's it. It's this. Nobody knows why or how. Doesn't need to be known. Nothing needs to be done about that. Infinitudinal complexification. Alpha and Omega, beginning and end. It's unknowable. It's ungraspable. It'll never be figured out by anybody.
Communication's coming out more. I would say it's more common now. Common is the wrong word. It's more available now, and it's agendaless, and it's.
Now it's apparently appearing. This availability that Keith is referring to here The availability has always been around. It's always been that way. It's just it just was not recognized that beingness didn't even need to be recognized all along. It was as though a recognition had to be formulated in order to be. Now, to simply be, that doesn't require a formulated recognition for that. But that's apparently appear to be how it happens, apparently. That the non-happening, the story of a self-conscious conscious self that took the appearance of a human corporeal manifestation and then gave it a name, gave it a label, birth name, birthright, and there's a separation. And so that's the way everything is. That's how it's supposed to be for a person. No, 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 no. There it is. That's it. That's not even a truth. You can't say being is truth. No, there is an expression about the beingness, but it's the absolute truth. To be is the absolute truth of what? Of how and why. There is no how and why. There is no meaning, reason, purpose. It is simply being. Being doesn't require a how. Being doesn't require a why. Being doesn't require a process to be known or some kind of a spiritual teaching that's required to be taught and then taken around the world as though there are separate places to be to teach that which we already be. We're already being. See, there's the conundrum. There's the paradox. Nothing needs to be known about being. Nothing needs to be done about being. See? Rest in that. Rest in what? Everything. Everything is whole, complete, perfect, of its own accord and volition. As it does. It's always been this way. It's always been this way, always will be this way. Which way? Anyway. It'll be this way anyway. Everywhere. Every awareness, beingness, oneness, that's it. Enough's enough. That is that. We are and we are not. It is and it isn't.
Really, it's just a sharing of a perspective. That's all. It's simply sharing. It absolutely isn't a teaching or a, and the power in it, maybe you could say, is that, or the apparent power, there's no power in anything really other than there is only what is this kind of maybe deconstruction of the concept of the individual. So there's a meeting and it's just discussing how there cannot be an individual. And maybe kind of deconstructing that or making that more obvious.
Figure of speech.
That there cannot be an individual. But all the while,
just a figure of speech.
When the meeting is taking place, appears to be taking place, it's really about the energy. There's an energy there to that because there's no individual in the meeting.
Right. Everybody's
no individual recognized in the meeting. There's no individual being spoken to in the meeting.
And it's both a personal and a personal presence simultaneously.
Whatsoever in any way.
Presence. Being.
So you are
so beingness is presence.
Being seen as
being seen,
unconditional love or boundlessness.
Being seen.
You are already all that is.
See, any teaching that is teaching about a knowing or doing, that you need to do spiritual practices, you need to meditate on a mountaintop, or you need certain conditions that need to be met. See, that's conditional. That's conditional this, that, and the other. Conditional doings, conditional knowings. No, it's all unconditional. Absolutely all of it. It's unconditional love. It doesn't require conditions to love, to do this, that, or the other. You don't have to know it. You don't have to do it. Just simply be that. There it is. Unconditional love is being. We are, we are not. It is and it isn't. Unconditional love. Unity. Oneness. It's always been that way. Always been that way and always will be that way. It just apparently appeared to be as though it was not. See? It has to be recognized. We already recognize that all along in the being. It doesn't require recognition still. See, at the same time. At the same time, a recognition is not a requirement to be and to know about that. Neither is required.
And that's really sensed, and it can be sensed very obviously from immediately. Actually, I've seen it sensed, and I've seen it happen before. The person who was giving the meeting even started talking. That I've known someone who was just so obvious to them before there was even a word spoken. So that kind of shows you how it's really energetic. There's an energy.
You see, it apparently appears to be these teachings that, as though they are teachings stemming from what? The Gita, the Upanishads and the Gita. And these were expressions in an ancient tongue, an ancient language, and that's where it's been hidden. These messages that we are and we are not, that everything is and it isn't, perfect, whole, complete, just as it is, empty fullness, spacious aliveness. These are English terms we're speaking here. And what is English? English, a language. What is a language? Is that necessary? Is a language necessary to be spoken? No, of course not. And yet, that is what's being spoken. See? Being spoken. In the beingness, there is being speaking. There's beingness speech. Beingness speech, yeah. That's another form of expression. To be apparently appears to be all types of infinitely complexified expressions of beingness. Beingness can appear in one of innumerable ways, and those innumerable ways are manifestations, and they are just simply temporary, temporarily so, and not so. It is and isn't, we are and we are not. Those are the bottom lines to convey this message of non-separation.
Energetic thing going on, that it's this energy that I'm talking about is all that is anyway, and is always available to you, but it's may become a little bit more obvious when it's communicated in this way.
Now, we run the risk, let's be careful of the, let us all, we, proceed with caution. Now, are we proceeding anywhere? No. When it's explained this way, it's not for us. Okay? See, you just said that. See, the statements using the English language, it must be treaded carefully. Now I say trodden carefully, because this is very new to what? The English language. See, each language is uttered carries a certain frequency of energy, okay? But it's not a separate energy. It is the energy of beingness. And that's unilaterally one. It is unilaterally everywhere. It's everywhereness. Beingness is everywhereness. So we run the risk of doing what? Of describing that which has always been the way that it is, and isn't the way it appears, and does not appear. And yet, it has always been that way. So, it only apparently appears to sound as though it's new, and it sounds as though it is something that's now showing up or manifesting for the first time. In a sense, for the first time, it is being recognized globally. The idea of the story of Earth, globally. Now, since the English language, this English language that's been uttered and spoken, is so new, it's a different, it apparently appears to be a different manner by which we are all expressing. That which apparently appears to be as though we are all sharing in that language. Now, the message was already embedded in the Sanskrit. It was thousands of years ago, the ancient of days. It originated in India, the Upanishads, the Gita. Thousands, so much time, so long ago. And since then, within the apparent appearance of timelines, the story of Earth, it has reached, apparently appearing as though a final chapter, in a sense. It could be construed that way. But this final chapter, using the English language, as a unification, a unified principle, if you will, whereby everybody, okay, that's manifesting as though there is somebody, apparently appearing as though they are a separate somebody, but they're not. It's only in an appearance. It's only in that appearance, but we are and we are not. We are oneness. We are one with everything. And what we are not is that conjuring, that sense of a separate self. We're not that. But what we are is everything. Whole, complete, perfect as it is, but not of our own accord volition, but the everythingness, everything that's no thinging and no thing is everythinging, all of it is all mingling together as one. It's non-separation. And that energy is not a separate energy, it's a unified field, if you will. You could call it that. So it only apparently appears to be this message of non-duality, non-dualism. It only sounds as though it's new. It's new to what? The utterance of this language, this communication of taking the original message of non-separation that originated in the Upanishads and the Gita, and a direct translation from that to the English language. And that's why it apparently sounds as though it's new, but it's not. It's very, very ancient. It's a very ancient message. And when we say ancient, that's referring to the timeline. It apparently appears to have been a timeline, the ancient of days. And yet, time doesn't matter, does it? Never has. It only apparently appears to be that way. So, there's this story. Story of we. See? And even that's conjured. The story of Earth, it's all conjured. It's just a story apparently appearing to be played out. And it's as though everything of its own accord and volition is a story appearing as though it is a separate story of everything, and it's not. Because it can appear as anything. It can be another story of Earth going on this way, but perhaps communicated and going on throughout the universe, other Earth-like planets. Mind-boggling stuff. Mind-boggling. It really is. Because there's no separation, that's why. Jeez, all these conjurings.
In the sense that the confusion can kind of drop away a little bit.
Yeah.
Of the confusion of the illusion that I am absolutely real, that I am a separate individual person, and I'm moving, like you were saying, I'm negotiating the world and moving through the world, and I'm getting to, start, middle and end, and I'm going to somewhere, and there is cause and effect and time and all of that. So all of that kind of stuff is discussed in the meeting, but the communication's coming out of no one, and it's been spoken to no one.
It's because
which the mind can't understand at all, because once I feel like a somebody, all I can see is somebody else. I can't
see. It's not. See, it's not you. It's not you. It's not me. Okay. Oh, jeez, man. not about you, it's not about me, because we are we. Yeah? We are and we are not. Like it or not, recognize it or not. The message of non-separation is being said now. It's being mentioned. English language. English language, very, very common in this conjuring of a reality, a dreamlike reality. It's appearing as a dreamlike reality for nobody, for no separate person. It is appearing this way for everybody. All the we. Every single manifestation of a human corporeal manifestation. It's just an appearance. Yeah? An appearance of everything, but nobody knows how and why that is. Why? Because there's nobody separate anywhere. We are every awareness in no fixed positions, and that is the unified field. That's the unification of what? This non-local quality conscious energy manifesting as though separate units of human corporeal manifestations are appearing in space and time, but it only apparently appears to be so since there is this idea of space and time, of fixed positions. That you are there and I'm here, that's not it. That's not what's happening. That is not we and we are not. That is not is and is not. Yeah? Just rest in being. You don't have to know about that. You don't have to do anything about that. Just simply be, and there's the bliss, there's the rest, there's the unconditional love, there's the unification, there is the oneness, there's the blend, there's the natural blend and mingling, the coalescence. This is the peace that surpasses all understanding. This really is. This is that peace that surpasses all understanding. How many times does that need to be stated? You know how many times those mantras are stated for thousands of years, every generation in India? And we just call that area India. It's just a name for a geographical place that apparently appears to be in a fixed position. Where? Where are any landmasses? Are any landmasses in some fixed position? They apparently appear to be that way, as though they've been in fixed positions. A coordinate. You look at a map, we map out places that don't disappear. Places, they haven't disappeared. Some are gradually, apparently appearing to disappear. But nobody knows how that is. That for thousands of years in all the points of light, and all the billions and billions of stars, it could be suns, and then around those suns could be planets, or it could be Earth-like planets, and the infinitesimal complexification boggles the mind. It could boggle any mind. But you see, it's not about the boggling of minds. To be is not about boggling of minds. Of course not. It's very, very the simplicity of that which is simply being, to be. We are. We are that. We are and we are not. That's it.
Can't conceptualize at all there not being anybody.
Yeah.
And
it's impossible.
It's impossible to, and it doesn't need to be conceptualized. That's the other thing. I think you kind of hit it on at the start of it. It is unknowable. The communication comes out of unknowing, because the individual is
operates in that. That's all.
Lives in the known. The individual lives in a loop, a closed loop of knowing. So really, what knowing the world is actually a closed loop of just knowing yourself. That's what it is really about. And all knowing is contextual and an abstraction, really, of what is, of the whole, you could say, So it's again, the apparent person will try to know, how can I know that it's about unknowing? How can I know that? How can I own that? Because that's the energy of being a person. Gathered in, I want to know this, I want to have this, I want to. So in that sense, it's very frustrating message.
Well, it's a bit insane as well. Like this, you know, you were kind of saying it's more popular. It isn't really. It is because you're into the subject and you talk about the subject, but in the scheme of what's going
in
on,
the grand scheme of things, it's totally nuts. Yeah,
it's totally nuts.
I mean, the world is being topsy-turvy in that sense, though. This linear kind of Newtonian view of the world is being challenged from all sorts of angles. So, in that sense, it's not completely as off the hook as it would have been before, say, you know. But as for the just garden variety reality of I'm a person in the world, this is completely crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're apparently real. You know, the word apparent is used a lot because when I'm a person, I live in the absolutes. Yeah. There's a me, and I'm living in the real. I'm living in the. It's a subject-object thing. Everything is an object because I'm the subject. That's that center. I am that false center of me, to which I'm that one subject, to which everything else has to be an object. So what I'm seeing when I'm seeing is whatever, be it a guitar or a person or whatever, is actually I'm seeing it from that through that veil.
But not a seer.
There's me looking at it, and in actuality, that's all an illusion. There's just aliveness or energy. You could say energy, and there is no center to anything. So really, what we're talking about and what we're suggesting is that you may perceive that there's this you or this me, and that you have a life, but in actuality, when you feel like that, you're running around looking for everything, for wholeness, because you feel like this small little
You're already
me.
being that.
And the big joke
you've already been that all along.
is you've never lost wholeness.
The
me was only the whole pretending to be me.
Being a self.
So what you look for, always look for, has always been what is. That's the. That's the cruel joke about it. So, in other words, and what's hiding is not hiding by being obtuse or complex.
It's not a cruel joke. It's not a cruel joke for anybody.
Like the person on the mountain meditating. It's just hiding, appearing to hide, but already being everything. It's appearing to hide by just being
appearing as
ordinarily everything that already is. But then the mind, when you feel like a person, that energy is that it's a rejection of what is in favour of what might be for me. So there's a rejection of what
proclamations, claiming,
and pushing
all these
away
claims,
what seems to be happening.
which is a separate sense of self somewhere.
Movement towards something better all the time.
That needs to do and it needs
then
to know.
it's just that what is life as it really is not then being seen. It's overlaid with this apparent me. But it does come out of unknowing. It's not. It's that if you see life as it really is, it's so immediately, obviously, just bang, just this, that any knowing of it is just it can't be known.
You know, so to that question, it seems
this is a huge paradox of it. You know?
Yeah,
it's a complete paradox. I mean, the whole thing is, and it can't be until there's a falling. And see, this is the cruel part of it. You're talking about something
cruel part
that doesn't even happen.
What's cruel about
the
me?
falling away of the me doesn't even happen.
Man.
If the me,
well. See, to say that it's cruel, come on, that's conditional. It's not cruel. Is there somebody believing and thinking that it's cruel? No, it's neither. It's not cruel, and it's not cruel for anybody or to anybody. It may apparently appear to be thought to be so, but there isn't anybody separate there, anywhere, really. Some fixed position thinking, oh man, this is a cruel joke. All of this. And I'm just simply being, but, oh man, this is a cruel joke. No, it's not a cruel joke to anybody or for anybody. Of course not. See, it's just this habit. Such habits of conjuring. Habits of conjuring knowings. And the way I need to know that, I haven't read it anywhere yet. seeking. I'm going through these. I am going somewhere, and I'm going to learn about all this. I'm going to figure it out. No. Does it need to be figured out to simply be? Of course not.
Is an appearance. The apparent self is an appearance to begin with. Then when it falls away, it seems that it was never there to begin with anyway.
Yeah.
And then there is only what is then. So there is only what appears to be happening. So if there's a thought, there's just thought arising. There's nobody's. It no longer feels like my thought.
So from my
There's just a
perspective,
feeling here. It no longer feels like my feeling. So it's just a feeling arising, and that just simply is life as it really is. It's just that there's no separate person there. But you see, once I feel like a self, I can only see another self. So all I can think of is in the personal then.
yeah.
So then when I hear the message, I'm trying to apply it to the personal on top of what's been said, and I can't even imagine, I can't conceive of there not being anybody, because I'm coming from that personal.
Yeah, and so like the way I would operate, even though I mean you can pick holes in it completely, the way I would operate is that there's a thought in my head, and that thought has I've decided, so thinking about it, asking the question, and then I'm asking a question.
Yeah.
And yet, really, the way that both of them are phrased, so this little chat goes on here, and then something comes out of my mouth, and but that this decides, so my brain decides this.
Well,
but yet they're not correlated really. I mean, the idea might be here. I don't know, but like so from my perspective,
the whole thing is, from the perspective of a person, is very much a lived reality of a linear experience of life. The past is behind you, the future's ahead of you, and we're in the moment or the now, whatever that means, and wherever that's bordered or whatever. And so therefore we're living in a time-space continuum. Do you know what I mean? There's no time without space, there's no space without time, and it's all been thrown out of this apparent sense of me. It's a total dream. There's only the appearance of time and space, and it's all coming from a sense of being separate. All of that cause and effect, all of that comes from the sense of being separate. So when the sense of being separate falls away, it's seen it never was
Timeless.
there. It was only apparently there, and this is obviously
Everywhereness.
eternity. It can't. It's so obvious
It's
that this is eternal
complexification.
and infinite.
Yeah.
But and then there's nobody who knows that. It's just obvious. It's the same as the sky is blue. The sky is blue, and this is it. You know.
and can I ask you, so on that, like, so for example, like, so I can get in a way, I can logically work out in my head, but time obviously is kind of made up. Even though I feel it, I know it. Like, if an alien came down here and I'd say, look, I'd say to him, we do lunch at 1 o'clock, so make sure you're ready for lunch. He's going to go, he's not going to know what time it is, because it's definitely something that we've come up with, you know.
Yeah.
So logically I can kind of get that. And logically I can get the idea in a way of space.
It is the tracking of appearances, that's what that is. You see. It is the tracking of appearances, although it's conjured, of course. Time and space is a conjuring. As though it was necessary to conjure time and space, and as though everything that's appearing needs to be kept track of, because of that idea of a past and a present of a now, and there's going to be the future in a few more seconds, and then every second ahead of time is going to be timing what? Time is timing the apparent appearances, see? Apparent appearances. Not absolutely everything. They're both is and isn't. It's only apparently appearing to be exclusively that which is timing the appearance of everything. But it's not exclusively that. It's not exclusively timing the apparent appearance of everything. It's just partially so. This is why partial liberation is mentioned. Partially liberated, but not as a separate liberated somebody. just an apparent appearance. But you see, even that, even to say that there's partial liberation and then there's absolute liberation, to say, simply state these human corporeal apparent appearances that are temporally temporary for an impermanent duration, for an indefinite duration in space and time, and not of space and time. There's just these appearances. And these appearances are not for anybody, and they have no meaning, reason, purpose, other than the accorded volition of everything we are and we are not. Everything is and it isn't. That's the bottom line. Just be. Just be. And there's nothing to do about that. There's nothing to know about it. It's beautiful, really.
That with spaces, the space is based on a number, which again is a kind of a manufactured, made up thing to make sense of space.
Yeah.
But that's a kind of a knowing sense that I would have, or no, I understand that. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of different than, well, in my head, it's kind of different that you, from your perspective.
Oh, it's
There's no understanding necessary. See, and then that would be a knowledge base, and then that would be somebody claiming to know that. See, it's a paradox. It's an attempt for somebody to say, oh, well, I think I understand it now. No. There's no I understanding anything for this to be everything. There's no I, there's no we. Oh, there is a we. There's an apparent appearance of a we, definitely. Oh, yeah. There's an us and a we. But there is no I as a separate I. There is no you as a separate you. There is no me as a separate me. There's no us and them, because of we can be separated, as though there is we as a collective, and then there's us, and then there's we, but we're separately across this dream reality, as though there's groups of us. No, there's no groups of us. It's a complete we of beingness. The collective we, and we are not. We are and we are not. It is and it isn't. Everything. Everything is and it isn't. Just empty fullness. And there it is, unconditional love and beingness. And this doesn't require a teaching to as a knowing. And nothing has to be done about it. Everything's already fulfilled. Everything is already done. Speaking of it, it just certainly is going to sound crazy to that which believes it is a separate person. Self-conjured self is not even going to understand. It's not an exclusive understanding, as though there's we to understand, and then there's them, so they. See, that's all duality. That's all the idea of a self-conjured self, and groups of self-conjured selves that believe that they have possession, that they are in possession of some kind of spiritual teaching that it's going to lead them someplace. It's going to lead them to a higher level of understanding, or a higher level of knowing, some other dimensional realm other than the completeness and wholeness of everything as it is. There is no other. There's no other everything. There's no other place to go or be. This is the everywhereness of beingness. Yeah, we are and we are not. It is and it isn't. We're blending and mingling with that. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's unconditional love. It's beautiful. It takes no effort to be. Oh, it apparently appears to take so much effort to do, so much effort to know. Oh man, I need to go on a spiritual quest. Oh, this is so tiring. All these conjurings, self-afflicted conjurings of unnecessary sufferings, and believing, oh, my life it's terrible, I have it so bad, or it's not good enough, I still need to go out and earn some more money, I need to work extra hours at my job, this, that, and the other. No. There's this recognition that it is all of those ideas that were once entertained as though there was a separate person doing something. Oh, when all that falls away, the ridiculous silliness of those conjurings becomes so obvious that it never was that way. The relief that is felt is not felt by or from a separate self. It is recognizing that it's always been this way, this we and we are not, this is and it isn't, this everywhereness, this one, this empty fullness. It's always been like that. But only apparently appeared to be some other way, as a separate sense of self. It always apparently appeared to be that mistake in space and time. So, everything that apparently appears to be happening in space and time is being kept track. How? That timepieces. What time is it? Now, that's one of the main subjects of discussion. It's the main theme. And that's why it is so seemingly difficult that a sense of a separate self is conjured. It is so powerful of a convincing type of force, this sense of a separate self, sense of separation. So strong because of this. So time, keeping track of that. And then doing something, doing an activity, all in good time. Or I'll know that, all in good time. Know what? Knowing is not necessary as being is. Being doesn't require knowing. Being doesn't require a doing or an activity to be. So there it is. And there's the paradox as well. It apparently appears to be that this manifestation of a human corporeal body-mind has somewhere to go, somewhere to be, in time, in space and time, yeah. Temporally, temporary. It's all temporary. For an indeterminate duration in space and time. And yet, we are apparently appearing as this and that, duality. But only temporarily so. And since that's the case, there's the paradox. Manifestation, temporarily appearing for an impermanently indeterminate duration in space and time, but not of space and time. Why? We are not of space and time simply because we are mingling from nothing, out of nowhere, and appeared as a manifestation. We are, and we are not. See? We are and we are not. We are, we are not. And oscillating energy. Manifestation, return to what we truly are with everything that appears as just this mingling on manifestations. But this idea of the energy doing that, it's an unseen force, just as gravity is an unseen force. And just as light need not seek light, I mean, there's no seeking involved. I mean, it doesn't even make sense, does it? Of course not. And yet this description of manifestation from nowhere, out of nowhere, from nothing, from no thing, apparently appearing to be everything. And there's be, see, to be everything. So we are mingling with everything, with the appearance of everything. As though apparently appearing to be in space, to be in space and time, temporarily so, for an indeterminate duration in space and time. So It cannot be predicted how long of a duration of time that these apparent appearances of human corporeal manifestations that are mingling with everything, how long it's apparently going to appear to be happening. So in the being, there's as though there's time going by, similarly as a river flowing. So life appears as though it's happening in space and time, and it's flowing. And there's all these energetic movements that are part of everything that's appearing as it does. And of course there's scientific explanations for that. And these explanations are simply a way to communicate and conjure up these ideas that, oh well, we think we know what's going on, but nothing's going on. See, there's the paradox again. Because it is and it isn't. We are and we are not. Oh no.
Completely different, because knowing about knowing you're not there is knowing you're not there is someone knowing they're not there.
Yeah.
It makes no difference whatsoever.
Pointless, yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Like not
Totally.
Yeah, because you're not here or there. We are not here or there, everywhere, everywhereness. We are everywhereness and we are not, blending with everything as it appears, as it does. There is no you over there in some fixed position in space and time, and there is no me and I, and vice versa. There is the apparent appearance of we, yes, but we are and we are not. What? Being. Beingness. Yeah, mingling with everything that appears. Whole, perfect, complete, just as it is. Just as it apparent appears to be so in space and time. And not so. Timeless outside of space and time. See, so it could be stated this way and expressed this way, using the English language. And it apparently appears to be as though the English language is being used to express non-separation that had been expressed this in the same way via the Gita and the Upanishads thousands of years ago in a place so named India, geographical place. Story of Earth.
reality really has become like a religion or a thing to believe in, maybe, even though it's this, it's like,
Not necessary.
so there's loads of people who believe and understand maybe intellectually that there cannot be a separate person,
Yeah.
and then they think that that's enlightenment, or they are in liberation, or they think they're somehow liberated. Whereas actually, it makes
I
it's
think
not
that
a
is
blind bit of difference.
Yeah, and I think that is
it's
the most
simply
fucking-
another concept.
And it's the most, it's actually, we'll say there was a time where I kind of thought, I said, yeah, I figured that out now. I know there's nobody. Well, not, I wouldn't say, but
Oh, by the way, the voice that you're hearing there is Frank McCaughey. Okay, and he has a YouTube channel. You can check that out. So it's McCaughey is his surname. Well, it's the birth name and birthright of that apparent appearance of the personification of Frank. Can we be Frank here? Can we? Yeah. That's clever, though. Can I be Frank? Sure, we could be frank about this. Frank about what? Frank about everything. As it apparently appears to be so, and not so. We are and we are not. Everything is and it isn't. That's a fullness, unconditional love. Ad infinitum.
it's not who the fuck do you brag to. I know there's nobody there.
You think you're there, don't to have.
You can maybe tell that to yourself, but like, and keep it yourself good. But I'm saying, but then you kind of, there's a feeling of total dissatisfaction with that. Oh, great, something else. I know that United lost the weekend, and I know this, and I know this, and I know this, and it's so dissatisfying.
It can be very sensed very strongly that knowing it isn't it really. Like knowing it is just knowing it is simply knowing it.
That's right. That's right. Being, it doesn't even have to be focused on. It doesn't even have to be noticed or recognized, because you're already being anyway. But the mistakes are that sense of a separate person that's doing something and knows something. That's the mistake. See? That's where a separate sense of self is just not going to comprehend this or recognize it whatsoever. So, since it's always been this way in absolutely every human corporeal appearance, regardless if they're aware of that or not, they are simply being anyway. Even if they don't recognize it, even if they don't notice. And when I say they are also we. See, there's this unified energetic movement with everything, mingling with everything. And just because we're apparently appearing in space and time, I said we are in a human corporeal appearance. And it's a collective. It is. It's a collective. It's been referred to as a collective consciousness. But that's just an attempt to describe how it apparently appears that we are and we are not. And everything is and it isn't. And so we're mingling with that. We are and we are not. It's not a separate you and a separate I, and it's not us and them. It's not groups of us and then there's other groups, separate groups. No. It's all a unified field. And it has been described as a unified field of consciousness. But then to say that something is cognized, is thought about, that's describing the mental thought system. So that's that stream. It's not much different than the stream of time and space. Consciousness is another stream, similar to that. That's why knowing is not necessary to be. And to be is simply every awareness, beingness. We are mingling with everything that appears all perfect, complete, just as it is. So consciousness is relegated to the mental thought system, and that's not what we're being. We're not being consciousness. See, consciousness is relegated to that which is what? Conjured as a separate sense of self. And that's how it's been all along. Wow. Oh. And then, this apparent appearance of a human corporeal manifestation. There's laughter. There's a whole lot of laughter. To then recognize the absurdity of how we are and we are not. And how everything is and it isn't. It's just hysterical and it's so funny. But it's also extraordinary at the same time. It's amazing. It really is. And isn't. It is and it isn't.
No, but like it can't. It help in terms of the confusion possibly that there is something to get. There is someone who can get something. Sometimes some people kind of logically get it, and a little bit of neurosis kind of falls away a little bit. But it's not what's being suggested. It's not what's being suggested is energetic, in the sense that the sense of me is an embodied, energetic, embodied, contracted. It's contraction.
And then, once there is the collapse of a separate sense of self, okay, it apparently appears to be as though it was a separate, this human corporeal appearance is temporary appearing, manifesting, okay. It's just an appearance. That's all it is. It's all it's ever been. It's all it ever will be. because it's temporarily showing up, observably visible in mirrors in space and time. Okay, but we are and we are not. It is and it isn't. We are part of that. We're mingling with that. Mingling with what? Mingling with what is and isn't. Empty fullness. Unconditional love. So, there's the paradox. Yeah. And these are not separate experiences. It apparently appears to be a separate experience if there is still this sense of a separate self accompanying the human corporeal manifestation.
It's an energetic contraction in the body.
As though there's an
It's not an idea that I'm in.
Yeah.
It's a lived reality. Of course, it's like your friend this morning, you're explaining this to him. He doesn't even, what are you talking about? I mean, of course there's people.
But he asked me,
you know, of
is
course
there a
there's-
conference on these things? And I
Yeah.
actually said, well, there's a science and non-duality conference.
Oh,
I did, you know.
to back it up.
To back it up. And I thought, because the science and non-duality thing is just so far fucking removed. I think, again, I actually think when you hear this particular thing, at the moment I think, well, who the fuck really in their heart of man and soul would want this? Honestly, didn't go around because it appears like somebody talking on this because they're sitting up on the top of the room. It appears Tony is talking about aliveness, or you're and whoever, and they're unbelievably happy. They don't have to go for a shit like somebody puts their socks on for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would appear that they, for a while, it would
They're
appear
here.
like that. But then actually when you hear it, you go, oh, you know, this thing of winning the lottery and nobody being there to win, to experience winning the lottery. Oh man.
That's not good. Like.
And then it's so at the moment I think, well, what the fuck? Like, who the fuck really and truly would want this if they hear it? Like, yeah.
Nobody wants it.
But
I mean, but you don't want what you're looking for.
yeah, that's a bit mental. That like, but
It is.
I
But
don't
again, it's a paradox. What's actually being looked for by the apparently separate person, you don't. What's really being looked for, you don't want it, because what you're looking for is your own absence.
I bought a poster which is going in that room, and the poster says, "I don't know what I want,
Yeah.
but I really want it."
Yeah. So yeah, it's.
Let's fix that there now. 2 months. I'll bring that out of this, but that's lovely. Yeah, so get back, like, who the fuck really would want
Nobody
to
wants it. No.
Yeah.
Look, I mean,
And yes,
when
there's
there's a communication, people show up, right, and it's heard as it's heard then, and it's really about the resonance of it. It's about it resonates somewhere, because of course it does, because you are already what's been sought. Like.
Yeah.
This is totally known already, so it can really resonate.
So the word known, the word known, it
Not
is
really in an
known.
intellectual way,
No.
but it's just because you already are that. So of course, it's like we were all children once. I mean, it's like we're talking about childhood wonder, and because we were all children, of course we know it, but we've overlaid it with adulthood. So it's completely intimate to us. It's absolutely, because you are already all that is. You are everything and nothing.
Being. Say it. Keith, he's not saying it. Being, okay? We are not separate, okay? We are a unified field of energetic movements, okay? Apparently appearing as though we are separate appearances of humanly corporeal units of local quality consciousness energy forms in space and time, but not of space and time, see? That's the paradox.
Yeah.
But there may be an energetic sense that I'm a somebody.
Yeah. There is.
That overlays then what is. So all there is liberation. All there is just energy. And in that then is this sense that I'm me. And it just plays out as it plays out. And there's no agenda then when it's communicated, because you are seen as already being just, there's nobody to be liberated, you see.
Yeah.
So who would I be talking to liberate it? That it's an amazing energy in the room. I'm not. That's so amazing. There's nobody to. There's no hook into anybody. There's nobody there. So you are. That can be really sensed. It can be really powerful. And it can be really frightening because it's freedom. So it's absolute freedom. So it's also what feels like the separate individual person wants to run away out of the room.
And words like
Completely,
freedom
very,
obviously
very
are
frightening.
attractive, like that.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. I mean, everything, any way of putting it is going to appear like a carrot to the person.
Yeah.
There's no way of communicating it without it sounding like that's something that I want.
But it probably, the thing is, in some ways, like you mentioned their childhood wonder or whatever, and then I remember hearing somebody saying something like when we'd say whatever age 2, contraction happens, like in these, so this could be the science part of it.
Yes, it's the energetic movement of innocence. It can be construed as though it's a restoration of innocence. In my Father's house there are many mansions. In order to enter into that kingdom of the many mansions, they must enter that kingdom as though seen through the eyes of a child. See, there's that innocence again, that restoration. See, that's kind of what was communicated in those spiritual teachings that turned into teachings, because those were beliefs that were mistranslations of this message of non-separation. Non-separation, this message was the original. That's the original core of all truth, the truth of all truths. And stemming from that sprang, in space and time, the idea of a sense of a separate self, and then a sense of a separate group of separate selves, races, different races, and that's how different languages sprung up to be spoken. All that separation. It was almost seemingly as though some type of an experiment going on, and that eventually in space and time, that separation is going to return to a unified field whereby we are and we are not. In other words, non-local quality consciousness energy. See? And this self-realization was about that in the Gita and the Upanishads. There's 3 Upanishads, and it was just hidden in the Sanskrit, the language of the Sanskrit that's just spoken, the Hindi language, and for thousands of years been hidden in there. Now it's seemingly been this new language that's gradually seemingly becoming a universal language, and so it seemingly apparently appears to be a new language. And so a direct hit of the truth of all truths regarding non-separation is a direct hit to what? That which we are and we are not, which is blending with all that is and all that is not. That's one way of putting it.
Because none of these science pricks want to talk to me.
Oh, do they not, Frank?
Well, your man came back to me. I told you the other guy who. I didn't have a nice feeling in
You
my
haven't
stomach
got the
about it.
academics. You haven't got the credentials.
Yeah,
You're not
he was
informed
so he was so direct. To be honest, I don't want to do this.
Okay.
No plamos, good in German, like
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. Whereas if it was me to be doing it, it'd be look at thanks a million for the opportunity here. And Fine, or nice and direct, but they're in this documentary, and if you watch that documentary to the end, it does give you that neuroscience thing, but it shows a kid in front of a mirror, and the kid has a sticker on his head, right? Or they put it, and when the kid is 1.5, the kid will look in the mirror but not really start to go, oh, I've got this sticker, you know? They won't recognise themselves in the mirror and that being a part of them, the sticker with the 1.5. But at the age of 2, suddenly it's, oh, sticker, it's on my head, like. But then, sorry, the point I was going to make was this, I don't know whether it was Tony Parsons said it, I don't know if it's true or not, it sounds interesting in terms of the story, that when it happens, that the loss, or the contraction, say before 2, a kid is 2 years old, they don't know they're a separate person, they haven't learned that thing isn't in there, right? The person, the energetic thing isn't in there, and that then suddenly it does happen. But apparently that contraction is very sad for a kid, or that when the loss of heaven, or whatever the fuck you want to say it is that a story? Is that talk about? But at the age of 2, if you were to look at it from a linear perspective, and this sounds like bullshit now, but from the age before the age of 2.
You can't really put a 2 on it. You can't. People refer to the terrible 2s, and there's a question whether the terrible 2s is a kind of sense that they're becoming this little individual me.
Yeah, is that true?
Before that, there's just they don't have a sense of themselves. Yeah, it's quite obvious in very younger kids. They wouldn't use their own name or recognise their own name, or they often sometimes refer to themselves as.
They wouldn't use their own name. See. There it is, right there. See, all these discussions, all these different YouTube presentations, and if there is a separate sense of self that's investigating this and still involved in that seeking energy, utilizing these human corporeal manifestations, that are temporary, obviously, but not to a separate sense of self that believes it is a separate person from everybody and everything else, when that's not so. It's a collective. It's a collective appearance. It's a collective apparent appearance as an energetic movement of human corporealness. Human corporealness. Of what is referred to as a person, or as people. As human beings. Being human. And then there was that phrase that was used in the 90s during this New Age movement, so-called. Spiritual beings having human experiences. So you see how it was mixed? This mixture and this separation, as though there needed to be some kind of belief system or some kind of a teaching conjured. And it was still part of that story of a spiritual seeker seeking information and seeking spiritual knowledge so that it could become something greater than it already was. I mean, it was already as great as it'll ever be. This is already as great as it'll ever be. I mean, it won't be any greater or any less greater. It's just simply be. And that is that. But yeah, see, it's touched upon regarding names. See, but when stated using the English language that way, a separate sense of self that conjured the idea of claiming, and in that claiming there was not only a separate sense of self, but as evidence. It believed that it had evidence. Birth certificate. Names. Okay. The very beginning, a baby is named, given a name. And these birth names then are taught as though there are birth rights attached to the birth name. And then it goes to the way of thinking as though there's some type of a trail that could be traced through the genetic lineages, the ancestral lineages. And so, separation again, see? Everything that's relegated to that which is a separate conjuring of a separate sense of self, conjuring the idea of separation, that this is a certain way and that's a certain way. This needs to be this way, that needs to be that way. All the dualities, all the many infinitely complexified dualities. So, as that which is considered dual in nature, and as there are innumerable dualities to describe, to this degree or that degree, this way or that way, also in non-separation, there is also the same degree of infinitude complexification of examples of non-separation. So you have non-separation, and then you have separation. You have duality, and there are as many different examples of apparent separation, and then there's as many examples of non-separation to speak of. And that's why it seems complicated, but it's very, very simple when it is all just envisioned, or it is recognized, or in the beingness, in the simplicity of being. The recognition is there. And to be doesn't need to be known, and nothing needs to be done to simply be. That's the bottom line. That's the core of non-separation right there. That's it right there.
Another name different from the name that you're calling them as well, and all of this, and then they are that. They're John, or they're whoever.
Yeah, societal
like,
structure.
But it could be way before then. It's there's no rules around it, but it's just an observation. But
in space and time.
What happens certainly is the sense of being a me isn't quite as dense or contracted
Seemingly
until
so.
Maybe I'd say it'd go on and then into maybe the teens, and then its adulthood really kind of cements this sense.
It's just similar to measuring time.
Individual self. So kids have a kind of
Conjured.
boundless free energy to them that we find amazing, really. Now, again, this is all in general terms.
Yeah,
but they would
that's
still
all
feel
retained.
like a little me in there.
That's retained in the
But then
beings.
the suggestion is that probably, in a sense, you're kind of it's kind of contracted, and then it slowly kind of comes into this sense, it solidifies or gets more solid, the sense of me, but then you could be pottering along in your little bubble of me, and then suddenly there's just everything, whether it's walking down the street or whatever, and then the me comes back the next day or the next hour, and go, what just happened there? What's that about? So if you were meditating, you might think
that's
it's
about
meditation, because you're in that.
That's what that's about.
Yeah. Cause and effect. I was meditating and I
You're
had
always
awakening,
being-
and that brought about the awakening.
Always
Or if-
inherently on.
Being really carefree that
Always
day.
awake.
Yeah, or
really
it's
healthy that day.
really healthy. It was the NutriBullet that did it.
Yeah,
You could
it's
start the church.
paleo.
Start the church with the NutriBullet.
Yeah.
But what, you know what I mean? That's the way the mind works. If I was very Catholic, maybe it was the Holy Spirit coming down, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's that sense then that maybe there's a glimpse, and then but then it seems to be that this kind of sense of me then can kind of start to fall apart. So it's kind of the same thing, just the other way around.
Yeah.
So the
Switcheroo.
sense of me, and it
Falls
gets kind of more contracted, and then this contracted sense of me goes along, and then bang, and then it comes back, and then it just kind of starts to kind of fall apart a bit.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot. It's more common now to be let's call it an awakening. An awakening will be seeing a glimpse of there's life as it really is.
Always
The
been
me
awakened.
appears
Always.
to fall away. This
Always
sense
been
of me,
being
and then life is
beingness.
just life, and that me appears to come back again. But then there's more of an opening now to okay,
That's if
it
it's
was
given
seen that
energy.
it's already just this, and you're telling me to do something to get here. How can I do something to get here? So it seems that more and more people are seeing this prescriptive stuff is not
Not
gonna
necessary.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
It's not necessary. There's no doing that needs to be done to be. See? There it is. The simplicity. There it is. It's right there. It's in the beingness. Just to be. Doesn't need to be a knowing to be. Oh, I don't have to seek enlightenment because I'm becoming. I can become enlightened, but I don't feel enlightened. Of course you don't feel enlightened because you're already enlightened. You don't have to feel it, and you don't have to know it, you don't have to do anything about it. Because you're already inherently on, you're already awakened, you're already enlightened. So enlightenment and awakening, it's all about seeking that which you already are. Silly, isn't it? I mean, just when it is so obvious, it's always been that way. That's why it's ridiculous, and then it's more noticeable regarding all of these different spiritual groups, spiritual teachings that say, oh, you need to meditate, try this meditative practice, try that meditative practice. You need to have these spiritual retreats. You need to be over there instead, and then you're going to become something greater than you think you're not. You already are. It is simply conjured and thought not to be the way that it truly is in the beingness. So simple. Really is so obvious.
sense that that's something else. That's speaking to somebody, and then there's more of an openness to an uncompromising message, which is not prescriptive, is descriptive, and is a sharing of another possibility. And it just seems there's more of an openness to that now. Maybe because really the whole authority thing is starting to fall apart, because the authority comes from you being separate, so there must be something higher. So when I'm a separate me, there must be this bigger authority, and that's going through the world as we know it. We have layers of authority that look after us, and we have, say, the local.
Yeah, that's where the idea of hierarchy stems from, the religious beliefs. I mean, that's quite obvious now, where there's thought to be, and these especially these New Age principles that refer to densities, and saying, oh, this is a third-dimensional construct, and there's a fourth density, and there's a fifth density, and there's a sixth density, and all these different densities, and all these different dimensions. No. It may be described that way because it apparently appears to be that way, as though there are these separate realities. There's only this. This is the one reality. It only apparently appears to be a certain specific way because of the mental process to think. It's the thinking is that consciousness that is seemingly apprehended and then used in such a way to claim and own this sense of a separate self. To say, okay, I'm me. There is life, but I have my life to live. See, this ownership, this claiming, energetic movement of claiming. That's what it's caused, that conjure self. And as they were mentioning earlier, as Frank had mentioned earlier regarding the baby in front of the mirror and then the spot, and then it's thinking the first 18 months or so, just describing the passing of time. And, since it has been obvious whereby the belief regarding keeping track of time, although time's unreal, time is just a construct of keeping track of moments as though the track is regarding moments going by, that there was the past and now there's the now and there's going to be a future and that it's flowing. It's a timeline, it's a continuum, but that's not really true. It only apparently appears to be that way to what? To a self-conscious self that believes it is existing in time. But it's not an existence in time, it's only an appearance in time, in space and time. what it doesn't realize that it is of space and time, and that it is a collective energetic movement. That collective energetic movement is mingling with the apparent appearance of everything as time is timing, as though it apparently appears that way, time timing, the appearance of everything. But everything is beyond time. See, it appears as though it is space and time, and it isn't outside of space and time. It is both. See, that's the conundrum. That's the paradox. But there's the apparent appearance of an infant, of a little body, a little human corporeal body, innocent, and in that innocence, it is already being. It's already naturally being. It's in a natural state of being. Not really a state, but it apparently appears to be a state. Why? If there is this idea of space and time, fixed position, here or there. You are there, I am here, you are there. Fixed position is not true. It only apparently appears to be that way. So, first 18 months in the innocence of that energetic movement, see, we are all still that. We are all still that human corporeal appearance, although time has been timing as though it's moving, and the aging process, as though the aging process has been an identification of the movement and the course of time, the course of history. The story of Earth has been developed and told through historians and through the anthropology and all these findings and digs and archaeology and finding evidence of past civilizations, things of that nature. That's all the story of Earth, okay? Because it apparently appears to be something that was used in a past timeline, and then taking the large perspective of the story of Earth is very similar in a smaller scale of a self-conjured conscious self that had a story to tell, so it's separate. So then, in the universe, the whole entire planet Earth can be construed as a separate self. The planet itself is similar to a separate sense of a self-recognition of a planet. You see, and then throughout the universe, there are other separate Earths, and apparently appears to be life happening, but as different appearances, according to what? Energetic movements. Nobody knows how that is, how it's done, and it just boggles the mind when it is considered that way. Will it ever end? No. It can't. It can't. It can never end, because consciousness has no parameters as well. Time doesn't seem to have parameters, just as light and darkness don't have parameters. Apparently it doesn't appear to have an edge, a seam, or partition. You know, there's light and there's darkness. The absence of light is darkness. The absence of darkness is light. And then there's this, it's so well coalesced, so well effectively blended seemingly, that you can't tell where light ends or begins and where darkness ends or begins. It's just such a very, very effective mixture in the blend. So that is how we are and we are not, mingling with that which is and isn't, everything as it appears. That is simply using the English language to express this this communication, this message regarding non-separation. And it's been turned into a teaching called non-duality. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. In fact, it's not even necessary to hold satsangs. No. That was simply, see, the satsang is used similarly as though it's a spiritual practice, and as though it is going to lead to the collapse, the recognition of a collapse of a separate sense of self that was never really there. It was just self-conjured. And in those settings, that apparently appears to be what continues to keep happening. Those non-happenings, those collapses of a separate sense of self, continuously apparently appear to happen, as though there's this interplay, there's this energetic movement going on, as though it's apparently appearing to happen. It's because of this apparent appearance of space and time. That's why it only apparently appears that way, and that's why and how it is seemingly temporally temporary. And that's a description of impermanence, and in the Gita it's described as Maya. You see, Brahman is relegated to that which is nowhere. It's no thing. It's Brahman. And then there's manifestation, temporal, temporary, human corporeal manifestation of the local unit of quality conscious energy form. And that's just simply a manifestation of an energetic movement. And it's just simply appearing that way, and it's just an apparent appearance. That's it. But it's still a representation of we. As we are being, we are, and we are not. The non-being, which is that which is relegated to no thing and nowhere, a void, if you will, Brahman. And then there's manifestation, and then how and why that is, it's just one way of describing. There are many ways to describe that apparently appears to be that way, and then there's all these different languages that can also be expressed. But there's a risk there that if the idea is entertained as though there are separate teachings, separate processes to describe, which that which is what is and what is not does not require an additional explanation for everything to appear as it does, whole, complete, perfect as it is. So you can't extract, take away anything from everything, and you can't add anything to everything, because everything is already whole, complete, perfect just as it is.
Local government, the national government, the world leaders, and then we have God maybe outside that, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Whatever your
hierarchy
framework is, and it's starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
People are realizing there's no authority.
It never was.
It's a game.
Yeah, that's because there never was authority. It was all conjured, all of it. Societal structure. You have to be this way or that way. You need to be on the grid. You need to be getting a job. You need to pay your taxes and that sort of thing. Keep that societal structure intact. Yeah, that's why there's anarchy, and it's going to continue to apparently appear that way till, just like the collapse of all the past civilizations that occurred, it's going to happen all over again. History, in a sense, repeating itself. Yep, history repeating itself. Like it or not. And there will be an apparent appearance of adapting, an attempt. Now, do we need to wait and see how that's going to turn out? Well, everything is appearing, isn't it, of its own accord and volition. We, as we are and are not mingling with that which is and is not, we can't predict what's going to happen next, or if there is going to be a next happening. See, there's the conundrum right there. But doesn't mean that we are existing and being paranoid about that which has yet to seemingly happen. There's no paranoia involved in that, because who is being paranoid? There is no whom being paranoid. There are no groups of whom being paranoid, but of course we witness what? Conspiracy theories, theories of everything. It's so ridiculous because it is witnessed, it is observed, and it is noticed that there are groups of apparent appearances of people appearing as people that believe, such as the astrophysicist, so named Dr. Thomas Campbell, came up with a theory of everything. It's the title of the book's My Big Toe. My. See, look, there's just so obvious. My big toe, okay. So it's my big toe, it's my big theory of everything. And guess what? You have your own big theory of everything too. You can own that. And you can use a tool set and you can conjure it up. And then you can visit the past that you used to be and all the past lives you ever lived. You can go have out-of-body experiences. And then you could go visit these historical databases. You see, the conjurings all over again, trying to figure out that which is unknowable. Nobody knows that, and that's just simply conjured. Just another conjuring, just another idea of what all of this is about. Nobody knows. That cannot be claimed. But there's still the attempt. It apparently appears to happen, and it's happening now, and it's being witnessed that way, and it's not necessary. So then, just to simply be, you don't have to conjure some kind of theory of everything. Everything doesn't need a theory to be as it is, whole, complete, perfect as it is. There's no theorizing involved with that. Of course not. Really? Seriously? There's no theory that could be figured out by anybody, or even groups of somebodies. And yet that's what apparently appears to be happening. And they're having meetings and they're using YouTube in the same manner by which other groups are forming. And of course, now we have the non-duality thing going, and the satsangs are being held, and the Skypes, and the meetings, and this, that, and the other. All of it is not necessary. All of that does not have to be conjured. Never did. It's unnecessary, and yet it will continue to apparently appear to be happening. And then there's monetary values, thinking that, oh yeah, I'm going to get some more money now so I can get more things, so I can live in just a little bit better combinations, but just for now. Now, of course, it's not going to last very much. So why am I doing that? Am I doing that? I must be. Apparently, appears to be that I'm doing that. I'm holding satsangs. I'm traveling around the world. Do I need to be doing that? No, of course not. And yet, is that asking itself why? Does it ever ask itself why? Is there somebody that, let's say, admits and says, well, okay, I admit, and I have noticed. Who noticed? Who's noticing that? You see? Nobody notices the collapse, the falling away of a me that was never there. Nobody does that. It's a non-happening. It just apparently appears to have been a story conjured by a conjured self. That's this appearance of a body mind, and then that mind believes that, and then the mental thought system takes the belief and the thought, and then it causes the mind of the apparent appearance of a separate body mind. Yeah, it's just a body, it's an appearance of body and a mind, and yet it apparently appears that a mental thought system uses that. Consciousness uses that to express through that. And so that's all that's happening there. That's not part of being. This expression with the consciousness and the thoughts, that's not beingness. It's all conjuring. It's unnecessary. Just drop all of it. Drop all the knowing, drop all the doing. And what are you left? You're left with what we've always been. What we have always been. Being. Beingness. Mingling with everything that is and it isn't. We are and we are not. We are and we are not that. Yeah? See? Notice it? Well, if you're not noticing, guess what you're doing then? You think you're doing yourself. You think you're conjuring yourself. You are conjuring all these ideas of a separate sense of self, and then you're going along with the whole story. The story of Earth. You're going along with it. You're conjuring the idea that you are a separate sense of self, and you're conjuring by the idea that you have evidence, you have a birth certificate, and that's the evidence that you are you have your own life to live, you have your own free will and choice to do so. All conjured. Self-conjured conjurings. The self-conjured conjuring of what? A free will and choice. As though you're living a separate life that life is happening to you and for you. No. That's all the delusion. That's all the Maya. That's all the impermanence. That's what it's apparently appearing to be happening there. It's not happening. It's not it. It's not what we are. No, we're not that. How many times and how many ways does this need to be expressed? Well, it apparently appears to be the case that using the English language, taking the Sanskrit information that had been expressed that way for thousands of years in that particular frequency of resonance, that particular sound, the sine waves, the enunciation of the Sanskrit words, the Om Mani Padme Hum, and that kind of language, these truths, the truth of all truths, had been expressed for thousands of years. Now, it only seems to be something new on the planet, the story of Earth. Only apparently appears to be something new, but it isn't. It's very ancient. Again, the message of non-duality, of non-separation, has been hidden in the Sanskrit language for thousands of years, but now it is apparently appearing as though it is new. And that's why it apparently appears to be new, this non-duality speech that's going on. Okay? There's no other way of conveying this communication using the English language. Yes, there are many ways to derive and different approaches and different approaches of using the English language, bringing up certain words and different types of words that are pointing to the same thing, pointing to that which we are and we are not, mingling with everything that is and it isn't, and it's empty fullness, and so there it is. And so that is that. Enough's got to be enough. Sooner or later, it will be recognized that enough's enough, and just get on with the being. You always have. No need to complicate it. It's very ordinary. It's very, very, very peaceful as well. Just be. That's it. It takes no effort. It takes no doing to be. Being is not a doing. Never was. Knowing, not necessary. To be. Do you have to know to be? No. And then there's philosophy. Remember those quotes? To be or not to be? That is a question. No. To be or not to be is neither a question or a solution. It's not a question or an answer. It's neither. To be or not to be? You're already being and not being. You are and you are not. We are. We are not. We're not a you. Again, see? That's how it gets broken down. All that separation, it just goes back into what it's always been. And then when the knowing drops, as a separate sense of self that knows, that believes. See, it's believing, it's convinced. It's conjuring up this idea that it knows it's living its own life. See, in the knowing. It's not in the being, it's in the knowing. That it thinks it's doing that. See, the doing. The knowing and the doing. No, it is being. That's the bottom line, it's the being. There it is. Using the English language, you just derive to that direct hit of being. That's it. Cannot be known in some other way. It cannot be done. There's no process or practice to be. Yeah? Yeah? Alrighty then.
We're playing, we're giving them, we've spirit to giving them authority and pretending there's authority and blah 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 blah.
People want it though sometimes.
Well, as a person, they feel they feel the whole thing would fall apart if they don't have it. You know, like if you were, an analogy would be if you were to say if you played the game, there's time, and you went back in time, and you were to say to someone in the 17th century in England that you you do realise that you don't need the monarchy. You do realise that, don't you? You don't actually need the king and the queen, and it's all a story. There's another way of doing things. They think you're absolutely mad. What do you mean? You don't? I mean, everything
Yeah, but what is the other
falls
way?
apart.
Yeah.
Everything falls apart if the monarchy aren't there.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the answer, because that's the way it was perceived. Just as the way we now would feel that the governments, if the governments weren't there, the country grinds to. Politicians would really like us to believe that now we're going through a period in this country there may not be a government, and we could be in serious trouble. We could be in serious trouble because they're not at the helm.
Yeah.
And then there's a sense now of people going, maybe we don't need them at the helm. Maybe it's all you know what I mean? Maybe it's all a story.
When I heard Tony Parsons and he was up and he was offered nothing to anybody, he was giving you nothing to do, no little nugget of something, not really, as much as is possible in that scenario when somebody's at the top of a room. He was offering nothing. I remember thinking, now I was on the back of some other spiritual process, and I remember thinking, this is the biggest load of shit. Like, who's this person? Who's he even talking? Like, what's he even talking about? Like, where is he coming from? Saying all this, and how does he know this? And he's a fucking con artist. Yeah. And I remember everybody in the room, there was so many people getting annoyed, and I went home that night. I remember driving home thinking, I'm never
not going there again.
Not going there again. And then I came home and I had this thought of, well, actually, he could have, because his message is so horrendous, he could be crucified for it, really. And this idea that crucifixion is a bad analogy, given we're kind of in that realm, but you could see stones being thrown at him. He's given so little, it could drive people so crazy. And then you said to yourself, but I had this feeling that there was love there. It was a loving message.
Well, that was absolute love.
Yeah, and I said it to him, and he said, well, now it's not the love that you think of now. And I didn't want to say, actually, I don't feel it's that either. I feel it is a different sort of love. Yeah, but it felt like the word, or it felt like love. And allowing of things. And
it's unconditional.
You throw the stones.
It's unconditional love,
yeah. And but it was the fact that he was offering nothing, and whereas everything else was offering something. And you talk about, at the very start we talked about authority, and you were saying
not recognising the person is unconditional love. Not recognising you as an individual person is unconditional love, because all you're being recognised as is everything and nothing. That's what you are, all that is. So that's very, very powerful.
The everything and nothing is flatline for me now. I can't grapple with that. I can grapple with the time and the space thing a little bit. Everything and nothing.
You haven't nailed that.
I can't grapple with it at all. I can't get my head around that one. I can't do anything with everything and nothing.
But again, you see, it doesn't matter.
I don't really want to
understand anything. I mean, it's all just, it's not gettable or noble or understandable or really like. In a cruel way, you'd be nearly better off knowing nothing about any of this. If you go in a cruel way, when you think you know something about it, and you see this with people who are spiritual, let's call them spiritual, they absolutely hate a clear, uncompromising message, because they know they've done this, they've done that, they've done the other, and to hear it's very confronting, because they've built up layers of bullshit, and that's what they're living in then, Yeah. So in actuality, someone who's no idea about any of these terms or anything like that, in one kind of crude sense, might be more likely to hear what's being said in a way. But there are no rules. I mean, you could be sitting there in complete confusion, and it's likely to be heard as someone who's totally clear. I mean, confusion is it as much as clarity. We think it's about being clear. When you feel like a person, it's just, if I could just be clear on this, then I'd be there, then I'd get it, then I'd have what they have or whatever.
Yeah.
And we do. It's not seeing that it is already all that is, and that confusion obviously is it as much as clarity. It has to be,
Yeah.
because we're talking about oneness.
Yeah.
There's nothing that isn't it. You are already all that is. You are already what you're seeking. But it's been overlaid by this contracted sense of me, through which everything is then seen. So therefore, life isn't seen as it really is. And that just plays out as it plays out. I mean, you know, there can be no agenda then for it to be seen anywhere, because there's nobody in there to see it. So when it's communicated and someone says, well, I don't believe a word of this actually, and I've been doing meditation for years and I'm going to continue doing meditation, I think you're completely misguided and ignorant or whatever, then that's what's happening. There's no agenda for it. That's just life playing the game. That's just life saying, I think you're misguided, and I think that's what's happening. So it's beautiful. And that's very much sense that there's nothing expected here, because there's nobody being seen here. So you get that push-pull thing, you get that resonance with it, and you also get the sense of wanting to run away from it. And it can be so confronting to someone to hear that this is it, that this is what they're looking for. They hate it above all things. Yeah. To hear that this is actually it. It's actually just simply this, and there's a huge disappointment in that for the person, because you're living in a hopeful energy of something to come around the corner, something better around the corner. So to hear that it's just this, I mean, that's pretty shit, really.
Well, it is when you hear about everything. When you hear about enlightenment and chakras and all that magic.
It's very misleading. All of that's very spirituality is very misleading. It is what it is as well. I'm not saying it's bad or good. It just is what it is. But it's obviously another thing for the person to do, and another way to feed the person.
Yeah.
Is to be a spiritual self, or to be,
Well, I was going to say to you, just to take you up on that, when you said there about knowing about this. Well, you can actually know so much about this that you get your brain you're just sick of it, because.
Yeah. And then that's what's happening then.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm saying because the nature of this is there's really, no matter how you try.
You'll never get it. Like
there's nothing you can do with it. And it's actually
you drive yourself nuts going around and around trying to get a hold of it. And you can feel like you're there, or you've had this glimpse, or there's this clarity, and you hold on to that for a while. I actually had that shit for a while, yeah. But that's what someone who's spiritual is doing, really. They've had there's been some sort of awakening, and then there's meditation, and there's this kind of sense going on that they can tap into something and they can make it longer, and really there's just striving then to make that the permanent state.
Yeah. Hold on.
And it's a total load of bullshit.
The only way you do is to hold your breath,
Whereas really what you're looking for involves a complete loss of everything. Complete, total loss of everything. All concepts, all beliefs, everything. A total, complete loss of everything to do with you. And at that loss, it seemed that you were only a story to begin with. That you are, in fact, just aliveness playing out this story in this body-mind. And there is only then what is, really. I think the closest, if you could say the closest you'd come to it in words is, for me, would be to say that this is it, really, which isn't close at all. It's just more words again, and it's, but this, it really is a sense that this is it. I mean, that whatever appears to be happening is it. And all the stuff we've discussed there, that may or may not kind of be apparent. Like the time thing may be apparent or may not be apparent. It's totally irrelevant. But when that sense of me drops away, or appears to drop away, it's just this sense that's very, 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 very obvious that it's just what is, or what appears to be. And a lot of people wouldn't necessarily have any of the language, or want to have any of the language, or speak in any way that would be non-dual, or have any interest in any of that, But it's just this very, very strong sense then that it's obviously just this, there's obviously just this.
And that's, I suppose, the thought has come into my head, and I have done it before, but if anybody's looking at this, and anybody's into this whole subject, they're looking and saying, right, I mean, the 15 people are going to watch this movie, I hope you enjoy it. But the 15 people that are going to watch this are going to look here, right, at 1 and 0.
Yeah.
And the view, it comes back that you know something and you're talking about something. So that's in that simple language. But the reality, if I was to say to you that there's just talking happening there, whereas I think I'm doing the talking. Whereas for you, you're talking about, there's talking happening on this subject.
Here there is only what is.
Right, okay.
That there is only what appears to be happening. So whatever that is, it's just everything, it just appears in that story then. And then when other people talk, you can hear that they feel that they're in there. They're somewhere in there in the body, and they're controlling everything, and they're making stuff happening. And
Yeah.
there's nothing actually happening at all. This is nothing appearing to happen. But it's very obvious that there is only what is, and that if that was there, this is wholeness and oneness, right, or whatever you want to call it, or energy. And that there's an artificial addition there, maybe, that there is a person called Frank or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's very obvious that's a total story. So then that's just something that is appearing to happen also. So there's no agenda to try and change that or to try and, but there can be a passion about the message that's just shared, and then it's heard as it's heard.
Mm.
But the person sees it as some sort of complex thing, that you're talking about some complex thing that I need to get to some state, or you're speaking from somewhere, and it's endless. It goes on and on. All sorts of projections and and in fact, it's just so ridiculously, ordinarily, just what is. And it would be a loss of an apparent person here, more than, instead of me having gotten something, maybe something has been lost here, and in that loss, apparent loss, is everything is seen as it is.
Which is what?
Nothing and everything. All there is energy. That's all there is. Appearing to form. It's the formless. The formless and form are one. Life and death are one. There is only energy appearing as solid something. So it's all one. That's all there is. But when I feel like a me,
really
when I feel there's a me, then there's the multitude. There's the two.
It rips to pieces everything.
Well, completely.
Everything that you've learned from day dot or whatever is ripped apart. In what you're saying there.
Yeah, but when it's also though, when it's heard, it's just so obvious. This is totally known. It's so obvious that this is it.
Mm.
It's just, it's not a concept, like it's not taken on as I've taken on another concept. It's that's when there's lots of laughter. It's just obvious. It's completely this. It's appearing to hide by being so ridiculously, ordinarily already just
we are not.
It can't come close to communicating how
Everything that is and isn't.
and obvious it is. And that's why it's just continually overlooked.
Yep.
It must be something, like you said, the fireworks, the big
Self
bang,
gets in the way.
Kundalini,
The self-conjured self interferes with that. Gets in the way.
But things do happen
But
as well. In saying that,
only if they're
you could say that this awakening or people talk about experiences.
But that is all that is. What is appears to be a spiritual experience also, as well as buying a paper in a local shop. But the person differentiates, and one is better than the other. In fact, everything is it's all one.
Yeah, there are no comparisons
and there's
necessary.
no more importance on some
Yeah, no
energetic
comparisons
kind of
necessary.
Kundalini thing than there
Precisely.
is on buying the paper in the local
Absolutely, no
music,
comparisons
music.
necessary.
But the person that feels that they're there will
Yeah,
then
keep anything in
hold
mind,
this
keep that in mind.
experience. It's just another experience. All them experiences are irrelevant. Any experience is totally irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that sense of being a self, it's not an experience that you're actually looking for. It's what you're looking for is
Being.
life as it really is, which is
Experience is a knowing.
It's a lack of self. It's a
Experience
dropping away.
is-
It's you not being there.
It's
Experience
perceived
is
as a
you
knowing.
experiencing something. And experiencing something is
It's a perception.
another object for the person. We gather
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, we don't
It's
gather
like
anything.
travel used to be the big thing. You have to go and travel, and you have to go, and then suddenly the world became so small, and anyone can go anywhere. It's not about travel. It's about
Right.
what you do with the experience of travel.
No, it's
So
not.
it keeps shifting.
It's
you know?
not doing
Yeah,
either.
I mean,
It's
it keeps shifting
being.
into something more
Okay.
special,
Bang.
and then something. And if it's special, then you can work
Don't
harder
say
and
doing.
get it, and then
You
you
gotta
get
say
closer
doing.
to where you want to be. But
Yeah.
There you go,
never
be.
get closer to where you
You
want
don't
to be
need
because
to
you
want to
already
be.
are.
You're already being. You
There's-
don't have to want
it's-
that. There's no wanting involved. No, there isn't. There's no
you can't
wanting involved in
approach what
being.
already is.
Did you catch it?
Mm.
Ah. Frank, you gotta interview me, damn it.
It is mental, like.
You gotta
It is
interview
mental.
this
It is
corporeal
mental,
crazy
you know.
freaking manifest.
Yeah. You see,
That's
from this
over here.
perception, when
Peterborough.
when it kind of appears to
Bloody
happen,
hell. Come on,
uh,
Frank.
I can see how it could be perceived as being mental, but it's not mental at all. I mean, in actuality,
Are
the
you
sense
mental?
of being a person is the insane thing.
No, neither are you.
Yeah.
It's complete insanity. We're running around,
There's
running
no
around, thinking we're
single
in control, and we have
Separate
control
self
over
being mental
our
anyway.
lives. Where's your life? Where do you have it? Like, where do you have your life? I mean,
Here.
wait,
Yeah.
like,
No,
but it's
you
you
don't
know,
have a life.
that
You
was
don't have a
one
life
of
to
the
call
first
your own.
things that hit me
It's just
was because
Yeah.
I've talked before how the
Yeah.
initial sense of dropping away happened, and there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
exposure to any kind of terms or blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And the initial thing that hit me was I don't have a life. I
right.
never had a life.
There you go.
I am life.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the other thing
You're
was the
being
veil.
life.
It was so obvious that it was like a
No,
veil.
you were
And
already
I wrote
all
about
along,
it in a
inherently
veil.
on being
It's
like.
like this. That's exactly what it
Mingling
is. It's like
the
as
being.
if a veil has come up, and the veil is a beautiful analogy because it's nothing has changed.
Right, never
Because
did.
I've been looking
It was
at
all
the
conjured.
exact same stuff, but it's just been through a veil.
Yeah.
Well, so when the veil comes up, it's just suddenly clearer, indescribably just.
Mm-hmm. Says it is.
So it's always been this,
Says
and
it
it's
appears.
never been
Always
not
has
this.
been appearing, yeah.
And then when I started looking into all this, the term veil is very, very commonly used, and I understand why, because it's a lovely
Partition,
analogy that we're all,
veil,
as a person,
curtain,
we're all, what you're looking
barrier.
for.
I am the veil.
You are
Yeah.
also the veil, yeah.
Yeah.
The me is the veil,
Yeah.
yeah. But the me is an appearance.
That's it.
It's real and
It's not
unreal.
a
Everything is
physically
real and
solid,
unreal.
it's
Some people
thought to be
say
so.
me is a
It's
total
not
illusion.
exclusively real. It's
The
both
self
real and
is a total
unreal.
illusion, and sometimes
Appearance.
what the mind will do is just the mind likes
Mis-
it will do this thing
mistakenly
called like
believed.
it'll do the play
And
of
not
opposites.
mistaken.
the
Believed to be
duality of
apparently
things
appearing and not
and
to
so
be
what you're
apparently
saying
appearing
is
as
things
though
everything is an
everything's
illusion,
not
everything is
exclusively
real.
so or not exclusively
Because the
so,
mind
but is
moves
and is
like
not
that
instead
in a
both
play
so
of
Yes.
opposites,
and not so.
it'll kind of gladly go there, and intellectualize.
Yeah,
but to say
summarize
that
that
it's
a little
both is very the mind can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's the everything and nothing.
Yeah, exactly. That's why
Yeah.
you always just hit a brick wall, and that's all that
Yeah.
can happen because the mind can't even begin
Can't
to integrate it.
No.
Because when I
It's too
feel when I
free.
say the mind is like this person, because I feel like a solid separate self,
The mind's too
I
limited.
can go to the
grasp
opposite of that. Do you know everything is not separate? It's everything is because I can just switch around the opposites.
Yeah.
But to say that I am and I amn't, and everything is and isn't, it's just can't intellectualize that.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Because it wants-
Can't grasp
Yeah.
it.
It wants
It doesn't need to be
exclusivity.
grasped.
It wants to
And
be
it's just, it can
exclusively
be more obvious
real
and more
and
obvious
permanent.
that there's nothing to figure
Can't
out.
do it.
Mm.
Can't know it.
And that if you have it, then you haven't got
But
it.
you already been.
If you
Yeah.
actually think you have it,
There's no
once
coulda,
you
woulda,
grasp
shouldas.
it, you haven't got it.
And
Because
I
it
hate
is the
holding-
grasping.
So, like,
It's
those
the
things-
movement of grasping.
That's
So
the
once
child
I think
thing,
I've
you know,
grasped it, then I've made an object of it and I haven't got it. Whereas it is actually
It is actually the what?
The movement towards grasping something is already it.
Yeah.
It is all that is already.
Yeah, and I suppose like I can relate to that now. You know, for example,
Yeah.
I can talk to a moment of something like that. You
Yeah.
know, to a memory. When you say that, or say a lot of things, I kind of don't really want to make it about. Yes, I might move on from that, but you know, I can relate to what you're saying there. Even if the idea that everything is happening already, it's always been happening by itself, always. And even the sense of
Everything is empty.
feeling the separate. Well, there you go. Now, when you say everything is
Its
empty.
own accord and volition. Yeah. Empty fullness. Oh, it's a
The
paradox.
void. You know the Buddhists call say the void, and the void is the
Yeah.
form, and the form is the void. And
Uh-huh.
that's basically what they're saying is
No
life is death,
thing.
and death is life.
Every
There's not this
singing and
big
everything, no
blobby
singing.
black thing called death.
Void,
Yeah.
Brahman,
There's only oneness.
from
So
nowhere,
this is oneness.
from
I
nothing,
hate the word oneness actually. Well, not that I hate it. I just
apparent
like it.
appearing
It's
into
very new age to me
manifestation.
or something, because that was my.
It's
Well,
not
it doesn't
Before I-
suggest
Well,
happiness
it's an
and-
interplay.
Yeah, it does a bit.
Yeah.
It kind of let's hug a tree and be one, you know.
Yeah.
They already are that. Yeah.
But anyway, I still use it sometimes. So I mean, words.
Well, I mean,
words
forgive.
You're not using anything.
Yeah.
It only apparent
That's
appears to be
okay.
used.
Say that's another.
Well, would you like to do that
I
now?
might. No, I'll do it later.
Do you want to lead us
I'll
into
do it
that?
later. Lead us into the prayer.
Lead us into silence.
I'll lead us into.
Fucking you lead us into silence.
Okay.
Fucking hate
Will we
that.
finish with the song?
May as well be. I mean, why beat a dead horse, as Paul Hederman says. Yeah, you could agree or disagree or whatever to that, but yeah. All right, okay. Well, there you have it. So, who has it? Nobody. And who has it? Nobody has it. Anything. Nothing to be had, nothing to be done, nothing to be known. Just simply be. We are and we are not. We're mingling with everything that is and isn't. Empty fullness. Spacious aliveness. Simply this. All the non-duality phrases that have been used and will continuously be used, and that is beating a dead horse. Well, the information is being communicated, it's being shared, it's being released, it's being recorded, and these recordings could be played back. And if there's a separate sense of self that is following these messages, these communications, these transmissions, relaying, not a teaching, it's not a method, it's not a process. Everything's whole, complete, perfect, just as it is, and there is no you, there is no me, there's no separate sense of a self anywhere to be found. Everywhere is everywhereness, there's no fixed positions to be, because we are already being one with everything, everywhereness, nowness, and nobody knows how that is, it just simply is, simply this. So, that is that. So you see, in summary, all dualities are and are not seemingly associated and not associated as anything seemingly appearing and not appearing, as though they can seemingly be and not seemingly be, situated and not situated, upon a separate someplace, as though seemingly situated and not seemingly situated, upon a separate here and a separate there. There is simply everywhereness. And that there is and is not an apparently separate you and an apparent separate me. That is so and is not so, simply because a self-conjured, conjured self's idea to believe and not to believe, and to be convinced and not to be convinced, that they are and are not existing as a separate, permanently physically solid entity that is and is not seemingly exclusively real and permanent, instead of simply apparently appearing and not apparently appearing as that which is thought to be so, and is not thought to be so. And that which is not apparently appearing and apparently appearing within the apparentness of everything is and is not anything that can and cannot apparently appear and not apparently appear, as though that is and is not something, as the apparentness of anything that is mistakenly believed and not mistakenly believed to be apparently appearing and not to be apparently appearing, as though everything is either exclusively so or not exclusively so, but is and is not instead. It is both so and not so. Therefore, there are no experiences to be had and to be claimed by anybody, since all is non-separation, as the natural, non-dual nature of everything that is and is not apparently appearing from nothing, out of nowhere, for nobody. As though there must be a necessity for everything to be separately meaningful, purposeful, and reasonable, as though that must be believed to be so and not believed to be so by and for somebody. So that's kind of summarizing all the paradoxes that have always been seemingly so and not seemingly so. So it is that way. But it's not this and that way, as all the dualities. It is simply this way. There's only one way. There's only one unified way of everything to appear as it does. It is not exclusively real. It's not exclusively unreal. Not exclusively observable and not exclusively unobservable. It is not exclusively knowable and it's not exclusively unknowable. It is both real and unreal, observable and observable, knowable and unknowable. For no separate person, for no body, and for no reason, meaning, and purpose other than of its own accord and volition ad infinitum. So that accord and volition is everything appearing as it does, and is and isn't simply this empty fullness, spacious aliveness. Call it what you will, call it what they will, call it what we will. So it's not so much to say that you will call it this, as this and that is, simply is and isn't, or that we will call it empty fullness, or we will call it something else. I mean, any uttered expression utilizing a language, it does not justify that which is and isn't. There's no justification behind that. There's no why and how that everything is and isn't. So, just simply be, because you've already been being anyway all along. Rest in that. And you don't even have to keep that in mind, because it doesn't take a mind to be. And it doesn't take a doing or a knowing to be as well. Just simply be. Rest in that. That's the peace that surpasses. It surpasses all understanding. Because there's no understanding required to be. See? There it is. That is that. That is that.